want to thank our sponsor, Binderlift. Binderlift is a patient lift device that buckles handles around the patient's torso so firefighters can safely lift patients of any size with ease. The most injury-prone non-fireground activity a firefighter does is lift a patient. If you're lifting heavy patients, and let's be honest, all of us are, then you're going to want to check out the Binderlift so you can avoid getting injured from lifting a patient. Vince, have you ever lifted up a heavy patient? Or any patient at all?
I've blown my back out so many times lifting heavy patients. I can't count the number of times. So something like Binderlift is a pretty awesome product, especially if it's going to save me from having to lay up from the job or go to medical or just work the rest of my day in pain.
Absolutely, and they'll let anyone try it out for free. Doesn't matter what your role is within the department. Just sign up for a free field trial on their website, and they'll send you a set of Binderlifts to try out for a month or so, absolutely free. We use them in our department, and I recommend you give them a try. Just Google Binderlift to watch some videos and sign up for a free trial.
Binderlift, the new slogan should be Binderlift, save your back. Save your back.
Engine 1, Engine 4, Truck 2, Truck 10, Ambulance 82, Battalion 2, Fire 1020 North Main, help is on the way.
Welcome to this episode of Chicago's Bravest Stories. Today we have the honor of having CPD SWAT medic, Brian Bardsley. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Good. It's an honor to have you here. Before we get started, we kind of wanted to...
We also have the honor
of welcoming back Steven.
What's up, guys?
Who has been a long time not being here.
Yeah.
And welcome back. It hasn't been the same without you.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely been the puppet master, but I'll tell you, it's nice looking at this guy.
In all
of his glory.
This is actually my first time in the studio since we had started doing stuff in our own studio. It's beautiful. I wouldn't have decorated this way, Vince, but hey, whatever.
Again, I am not an interior decorator.
We could tell.
Vince decorated with a fucking shotgun on these walls.
Hey, let's not forget that it's all Steve's shit that's hanging on the walls and shit. So you want?
It's like the little statue of the fireman your grandma gives you. And I know she doesn't listen to the podcast, so whatever. But Grandma, I love you, but I'm not putting it in the house.
So, Brian, so where do we start with you? You are rumored to have started with Chicago Fire Department back in the day, and the rumor is that you were assigned to Ambulances 10. Is that a rumor? Can that be confirmed or denied?
That is absolutely true.
Oh, my God. We've heard the rumor. It is true, everybody.
So, have I met the only man who's ever crossed the other way?
I get that.
You may have.
I get that constantly. I mean, that's the first thing everybody finds out. You tell them you are on the Chicago Fire Department, especially coppers. It's bad enough with the policemen or the firemen are kind of like that, but the cops all think you're absolutely insane. And then you have to explain to them the difference between being a single role medic and being a fire suppression person, and so I got to kind of explain the whole difference about how savage it was. I tell everybody the funny story. You're all full of piss and vinegar when you come out of the academy. And I requested 10. I want to go to 10. I wanted whatever. So I go to 10. I think I worked the suburbs. I worked in Cicero. I worked at whatever. I know what a busy rig looks like and whatever. So I show up day one with my SpongeBob SquarePants linen, and I walk in there and they're like, who are you? I mean, the new candidate on the ambulance. They go put that back in your car. What are you talking about? You guys don't have beds here? And they're like, oh, yeah, we got a bed, but you're just never going to see it.
You won't need it.
And I'm like, whatever. So you're pranking me, right? So I go back to my car, whatever else. We catch a run as I walk and back in again. And then 23 hours and 45 minutes, we pull back into Weston and Pulaski. And I'm in tears. I'm in my car,
just rocking back and forth.
Seriously, I got, snot bubbles coming out of my nose. And I'm like, what the heck did I just do? I don't even... And I slept for half an hour in the front seat and then drove home. And then it was an endless series of that. I was doubled up with Joe DeVillo. He was double up on 44, I think. So I got partner du jour on 10 every other day. And the only like thing for me was that Jimmy O'Shea was my field officer, and he took super good care of me. Like there's a couple of days that like, we had like the 2 dead babies and the guy that got beaten with lead pipes, and I'm sitting on the front of the ambulance in the ambulance bay just like, I'm just gonna, somebody shoot me now. I don't want to be here anymore. And he came up, hey, how you doing? I'm like, I'm okay. And he like drives off, and then the next day I'm at like the airport or something like that. He took real good care of me. But no, it was I can explain to people that that's what that life was. What that
it's hard to explain to people
they don't get
what
it.
that's like. Yeah, you really can't put them into that situation.
Yeah.
So
And that really, for you saying that was, that kind of knocked you on your ass, that's saying something, because we don't want to talk about, I guess we don't want to go too far back, but how did you kind of start all of this nonsense off?
I started on the Marine Corps. I was a Marine, like
Right out of
88 to
high
94,
school,
right out
huh?
of high school. Joined when I was in my summer of my junior year. Did that for 6 years. Got out and, kind of get that Marine mentality. Moved to Chicago, fell in love with a girl going to medical school up here, and which didn't work out, but I still hate her for getting me up here. But anyway, so I miss being in uniform. I go back to the Marines. They're like, yeah, there's an infantry regiment up here. I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I'll go be in the Army, which is stupid because being a medic in the Army is being a grunt with an aid bag.
Right.
So I did that for a couple of years, and then and I kind of did it because I wanted to be a better cop. I thought that would help me in law enforcement, and I loved it.
So did you want to be a cop like right from the get-go?
I was going to be a career guy. I want to be a career military guy. And then, at, 94, Clinton coming into office, post-Cold War, the military was just in full withdrawal. I mean, they were cutting numbers of guys. It was super hard to re-enlist. So that was my motivation. Was I was going to be a 30-year man in the Marine Corps. They were going to have to throw me out. There's a common theme in my life with that. Felt the same way about the Chicago Police Department. I don't anymore with that either. But miss being in uniform, so went to the reserves. And then I said, I'll be a cop. That's fun. Be a cop. Guns, but the same kind of mentality. And I fell in love with medicine. I really did. Like, I loved medic school. I loved it. I had a great time. Got my EMT license and then went right to the privates and kind of did that. Went to paramedic school at Loyola, like 98, and it just kind of tracked. And then pretty much Chicago knocked that off the rails. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was like, okay, that was cool, but maybe it's time to go back to trying to be a police officer. Right. So I took the Chicago police test and got hired up there, and I worked on the burbs, worked in Stone Park, and worked for Metro and PSI for a little while, and did the usual. I think the fairly usual track for paramedics. You kind of get your went to paramedic school, the academy. They put Metro put you through, and then you get $8 an hour to be a firefighter or paramedic in Bensonville or North Lake or whatever. Met some great guys out there, but. You're waiting to get hired by that full-time department. Or a lot of guys go the nursing route. They pick up their nursing degree and do that. And like I said, Chicago picked me up, and I was happy because I was starting to get a little older at that point. I was in my early 30s. So another reason why I didn't stay with Chicago was I was thinking crossover, but then...
You were sneaking on 38.
Right, and I'm thinking, well, what happens if that window closes, and now, I don't want to wind up doing this for a long time. So it just was a natural progression. I've always been kind of a gun guy, so for me to move to Chicago Police was... not a bad idea.
Kind of where you felt like you needed to be.
Yep, and it felt like the right move.
Did you have any family on either side?
No, never. No, never had anybody in law enforcement. Never had anybody in. My mom was a nurse. That's as close as I wound up getting to that. But as far as it goes, and I'm not from Chicago, so I got no people on the job. No,
no family. No.
Right. Nothing. No motivation like that. Like I know 3rd and 4th generation coppers that they knew they were going to be coppers the minute they hit the ground. And that was not my gig at all.
So, Steven over here. We got another Division 20 guy, too.
Nice.
So how long were you with CFD before you hit the road?
Just shy of a year. So
Really?
I did a hard summer on 10, and I was pretty much, that's okay. Yeah.
Couldn't have got it in fucking October, huh?
Yeah. Check that box rapidly.
Right.
Yeah, and then it would have been nice if it had been a summertime, but no, I literally hit the ground like in early summer, and I was like, holy crap. And you seriously think you do. You think,
No.
I've been on an ambulance where we did 15 runs a day, like I'm a certified badass, and you're like, holy crap, what did I just walk into? I mean... Yeah, so we always joke, like I teach a lot of coppers and whatever else. We talk about the idea the FBI says a mass shooting is 3 to 5 people shot in the same event, and CFD calls that Tuesday before noon. And I tell people you get a career call on a smaller department, like you're out in Podunk, Iowa. No insult to those guys, but your career call, like, hey, that's that dude that was on that shooting over where those 8 people got shot. You build a career off of that. On CFD, literally, that's everybody. Like, everybody's got those stories. And, I mean, I got mad respect. I got to teach a lot with Beth Cialino, and she was the ambulance commander over there for, like, 12 years. So I always start to my thing off like I was on ambulance 10 for a year, and that broke my will to live. And this is Beth Cialino. She commanded that ambulance for, like, 12 years. So, you know, if there's one of us that's tough, it's not me. It's going to be her. But, you know a lot of people on that side of the house, and I got mad respect for them, but I was like, I can't.
Well, like, especially the people who work on the West Side, we've talked about this before. It's almost like battered wife syndrome. They get out there, they're getting beat every day, and they won't leave. But there's something about, I mean, I like it because you're surrounded with good companies. You have good guys both on the fire side and on the EMS side, and you're going to get a lot done. It's a grind, but you're surrounded by good people who know what they're doing for the most part. Yep. And I think that's what keeps you around there.
Well, and there's a brutal pride. It's the same way you saw in military units or something like that. The Marine Corps doing more with less, and you get a perverse pride in that. And you saw that in those West Side companies. Again, you didn't really appreciate that till you maybe got out of a West Side company, and you saw people start treating you like garbage, and it kind of took me by surprise. I'm like, whoa, why are you guys treating me like an a-hole? And usually you weren't even in the house long enough to see the other guys. Like, I remember a couple of times we were there for lunch, like the battalion chief would just grab you and put you at the head of the chow line. Just go eat, dude. You're not going to have time. I know you're a candidate. Or you start doing dishes. Like, don't even bother, dude. Just go sit down. And sure enough, 90 seconds later, the tones drop and you're on another one. But then you go to some other houses and you don't feel that. I could see if you stayed on Chicago, you get into those things where you get other like-minded people that are real. I mean, honestly, some gals are trauma junkies. I mean, they love that life. They're hauling the mail constantly, and I have a lot of respect for that. I could see how you do that. Coppers don't think that way. Like, you got to fight your way onto a good engine, and the first thing guys do when they get enough seniority is bail out a lot of those districts. But you do have some cops who really get into that whole, the dope game or the gun game or the gangs game or whatever else, and they really get into it. But a lot of people just want to
kind of just find that lane and stick to it, sort of thing.
Yeah, you get comfortable. You get that comfort level with it big time. That's almost, like you said, Stockholm syndrome to a certain degree.
And there's so many different things you can do on the police department.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like that with fire. Like, I met a guy who was a dive team guy. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a scuba diver, I'm a rescue diver, whatever. He goes, oh, we should totally get you over. What company are you with? I'm like, Ambulance 10. He goes, oh, okay, well, it's nice meeting you. I'm like, all right, I get it. So basically, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. If I get promoted or whatever, but I can't. In fire, there's a certain amount. You can be a squad, you be a truck guy, whatever. But you're right, on the police department, kind of the world's your oyster. Like, if you want to become a detective, if you want to work on some of the teams.
And that's open to everybody across the board, right?
Yeah, by and large. I mean, promotions require a certain educational requirement sometimes. But yeah, by and large, if you want to be a detective, it's a promotional exam. And I'm not going to be too hard up on the idea of merit promotions. I could talk about that all day and probably get a CR number for it. But theoretically, a lot of the stuff's available if you want to go out there and hit it hard, hit the books hard and work at it. And the same thing goes with gang teams. A lot of the other elite teams out there. Some of it is clout. Some of it you know the right person or whatever else. But a lot of it's also you're the right guy at the right place at the right time. Right. I think luck. I think you make your own luck a lot of the time, but luck has a lot to do with it.
What year was that you got on with CFD?
Yeah, it was 2004. So the great story on that was I was the second alternate in my class, and it was like coming to the end of the list. So I go in there, and they're like, "Yeah, this is probably gonna be the last class. We're gonna recycle the list or whatever else." And that they don't call my name. They're like, "Oh yeah, you and this other guy, you're alternates." And I'm like cussing up a storm. And God bless Mark Kovakovich. He put like 5 people in the hospital the first 2 days. So I'm a part-time police officer.
Look who's not alternate anymore.
Right. So I'm a part-time police officer in Stone Park. I'm driving around, my phone rings. It's a Chicago number, and I answer, and it's just some chief's like, "Hey, this is Chief so-and-so. You still interested in working for the..." This is a Friday, by the way. Yeah. "You still interested in working for the Chicago Fire Department?" Yeah, absolutely. He goes, "All right, we'll be here tomorrow with the prescribed uniform, and congratulations." I'm ecstatic. Right? I'm doing donuts in my squad car and whatever else. And then the phone rings like 10 minutes later. It's the same number. I'm like, "Oh, screw you, dude. You're not..."
Don't answer it.
I'm not answering this phone number.
But, I thought, oh, fuck, I'll just answer it. So I answer it, and it's like, "Hey, this is Chief so-and-so. Tomorrow's Saturday. Come in Monday." Oh, God. So yeah, and then I go in there, and of course Markov, which has got everybody terrified. It's like everybody's got eyes the size of dinner plates, and they're running into walls and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, boot camp 2.0. All right, but no, that's so he'll never have to buy a drink around me because he literally got me in the academy because he wiped so many people out the first 2 days of the academy I got in. So
and on top of it, he's just a really good guy.
Yeah, totally.
He's a good guy.
Once you know him outside that environment, couldn't know better.
And inside of the same year, so speaking of being treated like an asshole, you started with CPD in
Yep.
04, right?
Correct.
And you started off as a patrolman in 15?
Correct.
Is it?
Austin.
How was that?
It's the same thing. It's the same idea kind of as Ambulance 10. It's a high tempo. It's a relatively small district. When I was there, it was awesome because you got a ton of backup. If you got on the radio and called for help, I mean, people were flying.
And it's
to come
roughly
help you
just
out.
the same area in geographically
Yeah,
as well.
little west of 10, but I also knew that it was good for me because I already knew all the streets and everything else. So it was good for me. It wasn't like I was moving south because you put me south at 22nd Street, my nose starts to bleed. I can't, not a south side guy. So no, it worked out well for me along those lines. And a lot of the same stuff applied, and it was a great place to learn. There's a lot of super senior officers there. And I think you have your same proportion of guys that want to help you out, and then people who just treat you like your POS and whatever else. But I was lucky. I was never the high speed cop. I don't have John Garrido stories or whatever else. I wasn't. Most of my stories were kind of making fun of me. But I learned a ton. A lot of really good coppers in that district. But again, I wasn't there for that long. I was only there for a couple of years, and then Iraq kicked off, and so that was kind of the start of kind of where I am now. So we had a great story on that. So 2005, I'm working the Air and Water Show, and somebody gets the bright idea of making me stand by all the peace protesters. So there's this dude who makes Michael Moore look like a bodybuilder sitting there, and as those jet fighters are going overhead, he's like, it's not so much fun when they're bombing you. It's not so much. I mean, so I'm like literally for 90 minutes, I'm listening to this guy, and I'm baking. It's 9 million degrees, the whole 9 yards. And I found a recruiter that day out there, and I'm like, hey man, said, if you can get me a unit going to Iraq, I'll sign up tomorrow. And he's like, oh, that's really funny. I'm like, no, I'm dead serious, dude. If you can. He goes, well, we got a company going to Iraq, next year or whatever else. So I went down there that weekend and joined the Illinois Army National Guard, Alpha 1st of the 170th Infantry, and did my workups.
Did you go in as a medic?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was lucky. I cheated a little bit. The Illinois Guard had a thing called the Try-1, where you could go in if you were MOS qualified, military occupational specialty qualified, you could go in for 1 year. And then if you didn't like it, you could get out. It was kind of a recruitment thing. So I figured, well, if I go in and they don't send me to Iraq, then I just get right back out again. But no, I got pipelined. Yeah, I got they're like, yeah, I got checked into headquarters company for about 3.5 hours and got moved right to the company that's going down range. And again, incredible dudes.
Medics were in pretty high demand during that period, weren't they?
Everybody was in pretty high demand.
Yeah.
This is 06. We were going into 07, the surge. So we were upticking big time. The only reason, in fact, the National Guard units were going was that Big Army couldn't support all the missions. Let me tell you, the 101st, the 82nd, 173rd, all those units, those are the premier Army units, and they should be. But they were hurting so bad, they were scraping everybody up. And I was a little broader on the beam. I probably wasn't the tightest guy, but nobody at MEPS took a look at my weight, my height to weight ratio. They're basically, could you walk into MEPS? Could you walk out of MEPS? And I got the green light. So, I got to go in, got to go do that. And everybody, they were hurting for everybody. But medics was a specific one. And I was, again, I came into it fairly good. I came in from Chicago Fire, everything else. I've been a paramedic for a while, which is substantially higher. They teach your average combat medic to about a enhanced scope of practice.
Well, they
basic.
it was an EMTI for the equivalent for the Army, I believe, at one point, right?
Yeah, the same sort of thing. You couldn't intubate people. They were just doing surgical crikes when I got over there. They're just kind of starting to teach those. But IVs, you were could push some basic narcs and stuff like that. So it was enhanced, but still, I came into it pretty good. I had a pretty good beat on things going down range. And again, it was another surprise. You don't really know what you think you know. You see a lot of small caliber stuff, a lot of 9mm, 380 stuff, and it's not like people getting hit by.
Do you feel like that year that you spent on Ambulance 10 helped you with what you were going to deal with over there?
1,000%. Yeah? Absolutely. I mean,
isn't that crazy?
I tell people, and this is no joke, I saw more gunshot wounds the year I was in Ambulance 10 than the year I was in Iraq.
This is the longest road to Vince trying to convince Cody to leave the fire department. He's like, dude, the Army's, I mean, it's a great situation for you. You're prepared. You're doing
If Cody was the Army, it'd be like Stripes. Yeah, it would be the real life version of Stripes.
It's not really for everybody. I'll just say that,
Sorry, Cody.
So, I mean, and in 04, things are, you're right in the middle of the shit.
Well, 04 wasn't too bad. I went over there in September of 06 to about October of 07, and that was smack dab the surge. It was incredible. I mean, there was 10, 15 days were 10 or 15 KIAs, tons of wounded. I was very fortunate. My unit did not suffer a single KIA. In fact, we lost more people to suicide when we got back than we lost downrange, which is another thing I'm kind of a little bit passionate about now with the team, SWAT team and everything else. But
what was your mission for your group out there?
So we were super lucky. We were not landowners. We were an infantry unit, but we got attached to the regular Army MP brigade, the 16th MP brigade, which is an airborne MP brigade that was doing a lot of the detainee operations. But we got to do a lot of their outside the wire scut work. Like if they had missions that needed to get done, we had one particular mission where we guarded third country nationals out doing stuff. And then
we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I want to know a whole lot more about what they were doing. But the other one was we would escort people out to the Central Criminal Courts of Iraq, which was in the red zone. We'd go in, we'd secure it, we'd set it up. They bring in all these prisoners, all these Iraqi prisoners. We'd try to run them through the Iraqi criminal justice system and then pull them back out, fold up, and then go back in again. So we were outside the wire quite a bit, but we didn't have those brutal day in and day out where our tactics where the enemy knew exactly where you were going to be and when you were going to be there, and those units were just taking a pasting over there.
Yeah.
So it was brutal. And again, the two questions people always ask is, was it hot? Like, yeah, it was a little on the warm side. I mean, I tell people, turn your oven to 150 degrees, kick yourself in the nuts and climb in. That's kind of what Iraq was like. Right. And then I'll sit in the front porch and I'll shoot at you inaccurately, but annoyingly with an AK-47 for most of the day.
Enough to keep you awake for most of the day.
Yeah, so, that's kind of what Iraq was. But, we got engaged a few times. I got to practice some medicine over there. It really put the hook in me for tactical medicine. Then I was a tactical medical guy before then. But that really was my passion at that point.
And it showed like in 08 when you left with, would you leave with a Bronze Star and a combat medical badge?
Yeah, I'm super proud of the combat medical badge. There's not a lot of those floating around. That's
what's the criteria for a combat medical badge?
So you have to treat a combat casualty while under enemy attack. Wow. So you can't just, and technically it used to be that you had to be attached to an infantry unit, which I was, although they've loosened that up a little bit. But no, that's a hard badge to get. They've issued about 20,000 of those in the entire war. Not a ton of those float around. I'm super proud of that. And that kind of shows that you were a person out there doing it for real.
Doing stuff, yeah.
You were a real medic.
Right.
And I remember the day I got that pinned on. The reaction of my guys is one of those things that that sustains you. When you'll be in a nursing home, you won't be thinking about a lot of the stupid stuff. You'll remember those sort of things, and it was a good deal.
So explain to people, has a medic in your unit, how many guys are you responsible for when you guys go out?
So we had a platoon. I was a platoon medic.
Is it one medic per platoon?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then we had a senior medic. There was a kind of would handle rotational stuff. If I was home on leave or, whatever else, he would take stuff. But, you had about 50 guys roughly in a platoon, but a lot of the missions were smaller. Like we would split up into smaller, squad size elements. You're talking 13, 14, 15 people with the interpreters and everything else. So at the end of the day, you were one of the gun guys. When you were over there, they didn't expect you to be a medic. You had to be ready to fight. I mean, there was no such thing. The old school back in the day where you had the Red Cross and you didn't carry a weapon and whatever else. Well, effectively, nobody's respected the Red Cross ever. I mean, in the Second World War, in a very limited number of theaters, the Germans would maybe give you a break, but by and large, even they didn't. And then everything from there, Korea, Vietnam, just medics were targets.
Well, I think that's why they changed your title to combat medic, because you weren't a non-combatant.
Right.
During
combat
those.
training.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the Bill Malden had a funny one where he a funny cartoon. He's a World War II cartoonist, and the medic comes in and you can see he's all shot up. And he's talking to this guy with a combat infantryman's badge, but his uniform's all clean. He's like, "I don't get no combat pay because you don't fight." And so medics were really had a little bit pissy about that for a long time, but that kind of went away pretty quickly. Even in World War II, you were getting combat pay, but they changed a lot of the ideas where being a medic was one of the best jobs in the military because man, everybody loved Doc. Like, especially if when you showed you knew what you were doing and the guys trusted you. Man, it was basically like we had a platoon commander who was like, "Hey, Sergeant Bardsley, you're going to be, you're going to be on guard duty this weekend or whatever." And I'm like, I look at the platoon sergeant, he's like, just give me a second, Doc. And I hear him talking to the guy, like, "What the hell is wrong with you, Lieutenant? He's the medic. He doesn't do anything." So, and the reason you have that is because medics, I mean, the death rate of medics was insane. Because what happened is if I shoot you and he runs over to help you, I just shoot him.
Right.
And then if you run over to help, then I just shoot him. Right. So they changed the tactics quite a bit. And this is one of the things that we teach to coppers and we teach to special operations, medics and things along those lines, is the idea that there is no medicine in a firefight. It is, you establish fire superiority. And when that is done, then you can move in and do stuff. And that was what drilled into our heads during our pre-deployment stuff all along. They made it abundantly clear that your primary mission was the rifle, and then if and when the opportunity presented itself, then you could start rendering aid. And it was a dramatic change and a dramatic shift, and a lot of people didn't understand that. When I went to Iraq, a lot of people were like, "Oh, so it's kind of like MASH, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, except that no nurses and no food and no whatever." No, they don't understand the idea that you're out there with a line platoon all the time. And that's the kind of medicine I love. Like, I had a chance to go back to Afghanistan when the brigade went back over again. But I was a little long in the tooth at that point. I was a little long in the tooth. I was 35 years old with a bunch of 20-year-old infantrymen. So believe me, I was sucking wind a little bit. But I didn't want to go over there to Afghanistan to be a company medic where I sat in the back, handed out medicine, maybe got to go on a patrol once in a blue moon. I loved that relationship that you built with your guys. And that's kind of what SWAT was, too. It's like you get that same sort of thing going on. And I'm telling you, it's a good drug. Once you've done that kind of medicine, you build your own family practice almost kind of. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Guys were coming to you with everything. Hangnails, anything that went wrong with them, from getting their legs blown off to I got a headache, and then you became, because I was a little bit older, I became the psychological guy too.
You're like a counselor. I was going to ask, like,
totally.
How was it with, you're 35 and you're with a bunch of 20-year-old kids? Like, was it hard?
Life advice.
Was it hard? Not hard to get along with them, but like,
were you able to relate?
Maybe.
Yeah, was it? Yeah.
Well, it was weird in a lot of different ways. Like, there were guys in my platoon that were gangbangers in Chicago, inked up the whole 9 yards. I mean, they were clearly in the life the whole 9 yards. But let me tell you what, once you hit the wire, it all went away. I'm telling you right now.
That shit went out the window.
And they knew I was a cop. I knew the gangs they ran. I knew where they ran it. But I'm telling you right now, if I'd gotten hit and had been in fire-swept ground, one of those guys would have came and got me. And that's the other thing that's a drug about. People don't understand about combat. You tell people, like, I thought about, it's from Apocalypse Now, where Captain Willard's talk about how the whole year he was in Vietnam, he couldn't wait to go home. And then when he got home, he couldn't think about anything but going back. And you tell people that, and they look at you like you're crazy. But you live in a world where if you leave your wallet in the 7-Eleven, it's gone. And you're in a place where somebody who is normally your mortal enemy would come, literally sacrifice his life to come get you over fire-swept ground or whatever else was going on. It was amazing. It was amazing you build that level. And we had one situation where we got hit with some mortars, and we were in a position that I didn't have to have my armor on. We were at that CCCI building, and they were hitting us with mortars. So kind of stupid. I run out there during the middle of this mortar attack to go treat some of the wounded. And I'm leaning over this guy, and I'm working on him, and all of a sudden I feel somebody pressing down on me, like from behind. I'm like, kind of look back at him. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? He goes, you're not wearing any armor. So this guy came out and literally covered me with his body while I was working.
Covered you.
Literally
covered you.
And he had to leave his position of cover to come lean on me.
Wow.
And again, when you've had that level of camaraderie in your life, nothing really even.
Yeah, where are you supposed to find that when you come back? Right.
SWAT team's the closest I've come to it, to be honest with you.
And minus the body armor thing, I felt the same way with Steve behind me at the urinal in the bathroom. It is the most uncomfortable but oddly comforting thing.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, man,
I exude that type of.
The heavy breathing, the sweats, it's all.
Same thing.
Yeah, same. So, and while you were, how long had you been absent from the police department? Was it the entire 3 years, or was it just on a periodic basis?
So no, I got lucky. So what I did was, because I did a try one. Technically, I was supposed to be out after a year, and my year ended about halfway through our tour in Iraq. So they're like, they involuntarily extended me, which I was totally cool with. I knew that was coming. So I had about 3 months of workups before we did our year in country. So I was
Where did you go for your workups?
we went to Fort Dix, which is the bunghole of the United States Army. I mean, dead serious, dude. And the Army was brilliant in this. They made that experience so miserable, we couldn't wait to go to Iraq. We're like, listen, man.
Please send me anywhere.
No, I'm dead.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I'm like dead serious, dude. I will please try to blow me up. If you just, can I leave here? I mean, I'll do another month in Iraq. I mean, what does it take to get us out of here, dude? I mean, the Army was brilliant in its motivation along those lines. So yeah, it was about 15 months total from door to door. And then when I got back, they stop loss. They cut the stop loss, which was making guys stay in, and I got out immediately. I'm like, yeah, I don't even want to hang around anymore. Thanks, it was cool. This is what I wanted, but I don't want to be a guard guy. So I got out immediately. The nice thing was, and the Chicago Police Department is not always famed for its generous treatment of people, but let me tell you what, I got treated like gold. They matched my salary when I was stateside. And the minute I went Oconus, I double dipped the whole time. So I got paid as a sergeant, tax-free combat pay, plus my entire Chicago Police Department salary, and it was like I never left. Didn't lose anything in the process, and they were so good to my family.
As it should
that's
be.
the way it should be, right?
That's the way
You
it
know
should
what?
be.
Absolutely. And again, like, it's not like the Chicago Police Department didn't benefit from that tour that you did.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, you came back a better man. Obviously, where you're at in your career now, I mean, it wouldn't have been, I mean, I'm sure you'd be there no matter what, but it wouldn't have been there without some of these experiences that you had overseas.
You know, I think I'm lucky. I think I bring a lot. I think, you know, as a medic, I think I bring a unique skill set to the team. I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's you know, and it was a hard road to hoe over there initially because, you know, I didn't go through a lot of the same selection process, and I emphasize to people that I'm not an operator. I'm not a door kicker. I'm not one of the guys that's whatever. But I function, and I had to push hard for this to function the same way I did in Iraq, which is pushed as far forward as I can possibly get without literally getting in people's way. And it was a process. We're getting guys comfortable with it, and you know, whatever else I got told initially. Oh, just stay at the barricade or stay at the. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing you any good. You're in a
The
position
Chicago
where,
Police Department didn't have paramedics on their SWAT team
No.
for the longest time.
No.
How long? What year was that transition where people started actively? And I can't remember that one guy's name who.
So there's a couple of
pushed for-
guys that did unbelievably good work. There's a guy, Lieutenant Ralph Cruz, who helped to write. Him and Sergeant Brian Berkowitz are
That's
two
the
guys.
guy.
They're, you know what, they pushed through the whole thing, and what they did was they were able to grab a hold of 2012, the NATO G8, the G Summit NATO thing, and they were able to push through what was called LOMAR, Line Officer Medical Response Training, which was the department didn't even have tourniquets. Like when I went to the police academy, it was like a fat like fire guy came over and was like, "Listen, if anything happens, call 911. The ambulance will handle it."
So
And
any fire guy could have come then.
right. And we watched South Park episodes.
Including myself. So
So that was my extent of our medical training. And then you heard horrific stories about coppers bleeding to death and cops just standing around them looking at them because they didn't literally know what to do. And, you know, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the OODA loop and whatever else, but once you get into that thing where you're not making, if you haven't trained to do it, you won't do it. They literally don't know what to do. And if you haven't been trained to do something, your brain is going to tell you and your body's going to tell you to just stand there. And that's what guys did so often. So they were able to get this thing set up. I helped write the Lomar thing. I was a tiny cog and a huge wheel. Those two guys deserve 99% of the credit. And they transferred that into Lemart. They were both SWAT medics. So there were some paramedics before I got there. But when they had left, the team had kind of lost a lot of its way on the medical side. So a guy named Brendan Hartford and Sergeant Kyriakis over there, AK, everybody knows him.
yeah, they were both my medic students.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So you're responsible for that. All right, fair enough. But they brought me over in 2013. They decided they kind of wanted to change how things were going, and what we did is I came over and we rebuilt it a lot like the Army paradigm, where we have paramedics at the top, and then we have operator EMTs. We run in-house EMT classes at the SWAT team. We put people through, you dot all the I's, cross all the T's, get them all their training, all their certs and everything. But at the end of the day, it's focused around the tactical medicine we practice. Right. And we make sure that they go in as the operational stick guys. And then everybody on the team is trained. We have an initial 72-hour block, 3-hour block or 3-day block that we do with stuff. And we do recurring training and everything else to kind of drill into their heads and make it a second nature sort of thing.
When you run into Brennan, tell him I still have his book about the PJs. I have no fucking clue where it is.
Okay.
I'll tell him I have the book. It's in my house somewhere.
I'll let him know.
So, all right, cool.
Yeah, he's
no, and that's phenomenal considering. I mean, I'm not sure how things are done around the rest of the world or around the rest of the country, but like here in Chicago, here in Illinois, like when you go to an EMT school out of, in a college, like it's all geared towards fire department. You don't really realize how much of that is fire department or private ambulance driven until again that point, which is insanity to me.
Now, is tactical EMS still not a certificate in Illinois?
correct. In fact, there's very few certifications nationwide on that. There's a couple of people who sell tactical medical things like, hey, pay us $300 and do this 8-hour class. And
talking
then
about like a TEMS class or something like
Well,
that.
Yeah,
I know like an NAEMT or one of the organizations teaches like a pre-hospital life support for combat or
Like
something.
there's PHTLS, and then they branched off into TECC, which is Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. But the main was TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care is the military one. But a lot of the civilian law enforcement agencies and the bean counters and risk-adverse people don't like combat, so they literally changed it to Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, and then even changed the name of some of the things within it. But the core competencies remain the same. But you have to look at also, there's some good differences in there. If you look at what my census was in Iraq, my average patient was a 20-year-old infantryman who was obscenely healthy, who got stuff blown off of him. And in fact, that is the unique patient census, not what we see in a normal day. Brendan Hartford does a great job explaining this when he does it. He's my partner on the team over there. So, a lot of stuff that I see are older people, people with asthma attacks, with the same census that you see on an ambulance, but we see that as we're pushing into a house. A lot of time they'll also have people try to stall you, oh, I'm having I can't breathe, I can't, have whatever. So and we've been pretty lucky on the team that we've been able to forestall some lawsuits and other things like that. Because let me tell you what, we get them out, we get them treated initially. We're super lucky that Chicago Fire, without going too much into our techniques, and procedures, Chicago Fire goes with us on everything. Jobs, warrants, the whole shoot match, and they're a couple of blocks away. So we start our initial workups, we get the initial treatment done, and if they need it, we call Chicago Fire over, and they'll either execute the transport or they'll get the refusal for us.
Well, it's like half the time the SWAT medics are like, okay, I got this, and they got everything written. I go, what the hell am I here for? There's the ambulance.
Yeah, right. And we try to do that. We try to get to the point where we're handing. And I looked at it like a good engine company when I was on 10. When you got there and the patient was worked up, I mean, literally, all right, here's your stuff. Just load them on the cot and we'll get out of here. Right. That's what the service that we try to provide within the tactical environment. That's what we try to do for you guys. Because what we teach our guys is that the number one thing, if you go with evidence-based medicine, the number one thing is time from point of injury to definitive care. And we are not docs with Glocks. We drill out of people's heads. I prefer EMTs to paramedics on the stack to go in there and do work because they realize there's a very limited number of things that you can do. The endpoint is going to be a trauma surgeon, and we want to make the Chicago Fire Department your time the least that you can spend there as well.
Yeah, coming from 3 paramedics, I mean, I think we can all agree on that. We've talked before, like, an expert EMT is by far better than a kid that
Absolutely.
Maybe does not
And there's
not feel confident enough in his
there's
paramedic.
5 paramedics in the room, but one of them we don't give a what he thinks. So
Wow. All right, Dan.
God damn.
Does he have his headphones on?
So
Oh, he doesn't even know what's going on.
poor guy.
best part about it.
This poor guy. So that's Cody, so everyone knows. But if we could back up, I'm sorry, Brian. If we could back up just a little bit. So you're coming back from being overseas, and you come back as a patrolman? Or?
Yeah, so it's a funny story on that one as well. So I'm at the academy. You do anything called retreading. You come back through you have to sit through some law classes. You have to requalify with your weapon. You have to get the psych eval, the whole 9 yards. So I'm there, and it's kind of a scam thing. Like it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. So you want to stretch this out as much as you possibly can. So you're hiding and sliding, and most of the time the academy instructors are pretty cool. Like they're not going to make you do all the stupid recruit stuff. Some like completely snooping and pooping, and they grab you and they're like, "Oh, you have to take the academy commander to 35th, to City Hall." I'm like, "God, you got to be kidding me, dude! I don't want to." Like I'm totally scamming, dude. So I get in the car with this guy, and he's like, "Oh, so who are you?" I'm like, "Oh, Bardsley, I'm retreading." And then he looks at you right off the bat because what are you retreading for?
Right.
Are you one of these guys who's a complete, screw up and and you've always been fired 8 times? Like, oh no, I just got back from Iraq, and his name was Matt Tobias, and again we talk about the idea of having Chinaman or whatever juice, and I don't have any of that. Like he just did me a super solid. He's like, oh, what'd you do over there? So I'm starting talking to him. We're driving, and he was a Marine, so he found out I was in the Marine Corps. He was totally geeking about that, which I was totally cool with. Like I'll play that card all day long.
And you guys can sniff each other out from across the fucking room. It's amazing.
Yeah, totally. It's like dogs sniffing each other's butts. Then you asking each other some questions, like to make sure you're legit, make sure you're not some stolen valor guy.
I had a partner on the ambulance when I worked in the suburbs, and he used to fucking just growl at random people, and I'm like, why are you growling at that dude? He's, yeah, he was a Marine. I go, how do you know?
Yeah, you can just tell. It's like it's an inbred thing they do to you in boot camp. But so he's like, we're almost to City Hall, and he's like, hey, so you want to work at the academy? And I'm like, well, dude, I got like
I just got back, man.
I got 3 years on the job. I'm not the dude to be teaching at the academy. What am I going to teach? How to be a douchebag rookie? I mean, what do you want me to teach? And there was a thing going on at that time called the Terrorism Awareness and Response Academy. It was a week-long thing that they put on for that. And he's like, oh, you'd be perfect for Tara. And I'm like, all right, dude, yeah, I'll totally. So he calls my commander, Al Weisinger, who wound up getting promoted a few times. Hey, Al, this is Matt. I got your guy Bardsley here. He's retread. I'm taking him. Okay, thanks. He goes, all right, well, Monday, report to Tara. I'm like, okay,
Right.
sounds good to me.
Wow.
So yeah, I got snatched right off the street, and I feel sometimes you feel bad about that because then from there I did quite a stretch at the academy. I got super lucky. Like I got to teach. I got to teach rifle, pistol. So I went from Tara to the rifle program, taught the carbine for a couple of years. Then I got to teach recruits a little bit, got to teach some of the medical stuff, a little bit of tactics. It was just a great time for me.
Yeah.
And then 2013, again, they came up and, Hartford's like, hey, do you want to come over to SWAT? And I'm like, well, like the academy is one of those places, if you play your cards right, keep your mouth shut, especially if you're a marksmanship guy, you can almost disappear for a career there. Like you can become that guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, man, do I want to leave this and go to that?
I got this cake job, man.
Right, no, seriously. And I love shooting. I'm a gun guy. It's like, you're going to pay me to teach people how to shoot. Although a lot of the time that was not as easy as it sounded sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like,
Sure
man.
it wasn't.
But then I'm like, whoa, dude, man. But then you get the bug. You get the, wow, I can go to the SWAT team. I could be a medic again. Like I can literally go back to that gig and I can try to do that.
So
and I'm telling you.
how old were you at this time when you got the nod for SWAT?
So I would be at that point. So this was I went to Iraq. I was 34. So 42.
You were 42 when you got the nod to SWAT?
42. I got moved over there. Let me tell you what. It's the same deal. And like you can't see me on the podcast obviously, but I'm not a swimsuit model. Like the time I spend in the gym isn't. I mean, I'm like the before guy and the before and after thing, and you're hanging out with a bunch of guys who are like they're that's what they do. They do a lot of tactical.
I disagree. We got a really big computer screen right here, so I can't see Vince or Cody, but I just see you and Steve. I feel like you do look like a swimsuit model right now.
Well, I'll take it.
to
Listen,
me,
I'll take it. I appreciate it. But no, it's hard. You're 42 years old. You're getting in there, and at 50 could be 50 at the end of this month, and it's hard. You're an old man in a young man's job. And again, even not being a full operational guy, you still get pulled into enough stuff where, and there's no slack shown. You either keep up or, they let you know about it pretty quickly.
Yeah. I got it, man. I mean, is there? I don't know a lot about cops, but is there like an upper echelon level of like the quote unquote SWAT team guy? As it pertains to like just the like kind of a not lower level, but like an entry level police officer, like is there kind of like some hero enamorment with those guys on SWAT or?
The Chicago the police department is weird. Like they hate everybody. Like everybody hates everybody. Like if you're not like what I do,
guy.
right? No, exactly. Yeah, fuck him. You guy's a clout hacker.
That's like every firehouse. So it's a Chicago thing, I guess.
You don't see a ton of that, and the guys don't look upon themselves as elite. We're elite in what we do, but if you look at a gang guy or a narcotics guy or a lot of those units, in their own way, they're just as elite as we are. So we just, we feel like our job is to.
You just have a different specialty.
That's exactly it. It's a tough specialty, and it requires a lot of work to be good at. But those guys put the work in, and so what they do, they are. But I don't get the feeling on that team at all that they look at other coppers. And there's a lot of jokes about how cops. There's the SWAT nod. I'm cool to say, too cool to say hi
Was
to
that
you.
it right there?
That was it.
Oh my god!
We might have to get a video for
Oh
our
my
YouTube
God,
channel.
I got it too. And let me tell you, it is so nice.
Yeah, so it's there's a lot of jokes. You're SWAT or you're not or whatever. I don't
Oh,
you don't see a lot of that. Those guys like they like to in the gym rubbing each other with oil and stuff like that. Whatever. But that's a different story entirely.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's not true, but it's.
But I just don't think I don't think the department looks at us as like some kind of crazy, like in the military, you think of like Delta. Like,
Right.
those are, and it's not the same.
Well, those guys are.
Oh my God, we
Jesus.
got to train with some tier 1 guys, and let me tell you what, they're everything that you've heard about them. They're just
Do they really look like just average? You would never be able to tell by looking at them.
no,
that these
most
guys-
of them. No,
They
they're
look like
not
your
ripped.
neighbor, right?
Yeah, they're not ripped. I mean, they're not fat. They all look slightly underweight, but and you don't see a lot of the muscle heads. I don't think I saw a single one of them with the Navy unit that we were able to work with. I didn't see them. I didn't see any of them that was like, Luke, you looked like, wow, that guy's like cock diesel. Like, yeah, you could totally tell. Like, and we made fun of the SEALs. They're busy. We thought, do you have a workout video yet, or whatever? And at that level, they don't think that shit's funny. And I shut up quickly because I didn't want to get snapped in half and put in a dumpster somewhere.
It's so nice to be.
But they don't
be
look
on TV and be able to do P90X and all.
Yeah,
this.
they don't. These guys are completely adverse to that sort of thing. Like they're much more the quiet professionals. But you're exactly right. You look at those guys, and there were some dudes there that had stacked bodies. I mean, for real. I mean, like guys who had Silver Stars, Navy Crosses. I mean, had gone downrange multiple times, had done some serious work, and you'd never know it. They were just the most laid back dudes. Hey, this is Dave. I'm Mike. We ran into some Special Forces guys in Iraq, and I still don't know who they were. They were all bearded dudes, and
We went to paramedic school with this guy, and he literally looked like a fucking G.I. Joe doll. Like, and he was a Green Beret or
He was a Ranger.
yeah, and
Army Ranger.
what a fucking dude.
Yeah, he. And we're getting off topic here, but yeah, like this guy was like he was. I want to say late 40s, and like
He turned 40 when we were in paramedic school.
Yeah,
but he
jacked.
looked like he was 32.
Yeah, jacked, and he like as we went on, he was another one of those guys where like you wouldn't have. I mean, you thought he did something, but he was one of those guys where like not boastful at all. Like never really talked about much. Oh, I did some time in service, and like as we got to know him, like we'd go through pictures and just see him like just big bearded motherfucker. He's got he's got the dirk on, right?
yeah,
Is that
well,
the full?
I'm not sure
like,
what the hat that they wear. Yeah, they. Yeah,
but
shamags or whatever.
We went over to his house for dinner one time. He got us fucked up and showed us videos of stuff, and we're like, "Whoa, all right."
Yeah, those guys took some videos that probably you don't want.
Oh, yeah.
A whole lot of people to know. We did. I mean, I was an infantry unit, so I took a bunch of pictures, but that was it. And never when we were getting shot at. If you're so cool that you can take videos of doing hits, then you're better than I am. Because I'm telling you what, I was looking through a drinking straw in a puddle of piss with a snot bubble in my nose. I wasn't like that guy.
Yeah, thanks, Dick.
But they were. These guys in Iraq were awesome. Like they were clearly a high-end special forces team. I don't know, who they were. They could have been CAG. They could have been SF. I don't know. But they were so totally cool. They were awesome. They like saw us there, and we're like a National Guard infantry unit. Let me tell you what, in the
hierarchy.
The ziggurat of the military. Let me tell you what, you couldn't have got any further spread than us. And those guys couldn't have been cooler. Like, oh, hey man, so who's your medic? I'm like, me. Hey, Dave, come over here. And Dave's probably like a master sergeant or like a sergeant major. Hey, I'm Dave, man. And their machine gunner talked to our machine gunner, and they like gave us stuff. And they're like, there was this pimp ass sling they had for the little CQB saw that they gave our guys. They couldn't have been any cooler in the world. They totally did not have to be. Like they could have been like, you just piss off and go clean our vehicles, and we'd have been like, okay, yes sir, we're happy to do it. And that's one of the things, the hallmarks of the special operations community I thought was always awesome, is the way that they're always so willing to reach out to anybody who's on their team and work on making them better. And that's, from Ranger Regiment on up, they're phenomenal guys. And it's everything we know about tactical medicine really started out with those guys. You go back to Black Hawk Down, where they lost a lot of guys in Gothic Serpent, and they were not happy about it. And when I went to infantry school or whatever else, the medicine we learned was unchanged from the Civil War. I mean, you could literally.
What's one of the biggest changes that you've seen through your time as a medic with our military?
Tourniquets.
Tourniquets.
I'm telling you what, you got a paper cut and a rock, you got a tourniquet, end of story. Like, we didn't even care. Like, and that was such a huge deal when you went through back in '88. It was put pressure, and then put a battle dressing, and then wait 3 to 5 minutes, and put a pressure dressing, and then wait an arterial bleed. The dude is dead. I mean, dead. And you look at the numbers. You look at like 10% of the numbers of the bodies on the wall in the memorial in Vietnam. Those 10% of those guys were exsanguination from extremity wounds, dude. It was an easy fix.
Where do you keep your tourniquet?
So we make our guys keep them center of mass on their body, able to reach them with either hand. So I have one that goes on the bottom of my kit. I have one that sits right there. I have one that sits in the front of my armor, and then I actually have one on the stock of my rifle. Because I'm the medic, so I carry more, but I make sure my guys are carrying 4 a piece. I want them to be able to work on 2 catastrophic casualties a piece. And then, of course, I'm taking their kit off of them anyway. If we train our guys to work off the guy's kit rather than your own. But I think the 2 differences you saw is that head to toe, bottom to top, whether you're a FOBIT in skivvy folder all the way to an elite unit, you're getting medical training. Ranger Regiment made one of their 4 core competencies. When McChrystal commanded the regiment, he made medicine one of the 4 core competencies for Rangers. And that's where I did kind of my exemplar from a medic standpoint. That's what I based our program on SWAT off of and everything else. But I think those are the 2 big differences. Head to toe, everybody proficient in medicine. And then number 2, the tourniquet just becoming just a dead bang staple. Like, don't pass go, don't call it $200, slap a tourniquet on it and be done. And again, there's changes from 2 to 4 inches above to now just high and tight. Slap that sucker in place, cinch it down, and be done with it. But I think those are probably the 2 biggest things.
Yeah.
But you've seen a ton of other stuff. Airway management in the military, they go VFR direct to surgical crikes now. They don't dick around. Like, they're either manual positioning or surgical crikes. I mean, you literally go to the Navy. The Navy runs a really cool course up at not Great Lakes, but yeah, it is Great Lakes, but it's the Lovell Center up there. Man, they get 19-year-old kids going through corpsman school that are just surgical crikes. I mean, just sky's blue, water's wet, put a crike on them. I mean, they don't.
God bless.
With high levels of success, apparently, when you look at the evidence-based medicine coming out, going to places like SOMA. If you're not a member, if you're interested in that, and you're not a member of SOMA, which is Special Operations Medical Association, it's the military's organization that does that sort of thing. They have a really good conference in Charlotte every year. And they're all, oh my God, you seriously. And it's not like I'm not plugging them because they're not a money-making organization.
Like anybody can go?
Yeah, I mean, they don't care. I mean, technically, like, they're super cool about letting people. And the problem is that you go there and you see all these dudes that are like
bad dudes.
They're the bad dude. And then you see some fat cop with his I fight what you fear t-shirt on. You're like, oh my God, dude, stop.
Fuck it. I thought this was a business expense, but I'm not going. Fucking go and get made fun
Steve,
of. Like,
no,
seriously,
it's not
dude.
you.
We're still going?
For the love of... Well, listen, wearing that around here is fine, but you're going to Soma, dude. That's a Delta guy. What are you doing? You're making us all look bad. It's bad enough that you look like a stunt double for Grimace, but now you're wearing a cop t-shirt along with it? Stop.
Right.
But no, they're super cool about letting almost anybody go to it. They put a little quarterly magazine out. If you're
Pretty
serious about
setup.
yeah, those guys are just unbelievable. The same mindset that they put into killing people, they put into saving people. And again, and I love it. They're like the doctor, they're like the Special Forces Mafia, because when they came up with that after Black Hawk Down, they kind of got told by Army med, like, screw you, you're a trigger puller, shut up and pull triggers, dude. They just went to medical school. Like, they're so motivated and they're so smart. They just, all right, well, screw you then. We'll become trauma surgeons. And that's literally what they did. And now, a big
And then
part
you're
of...
going to call us in 10 years.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And they took it over. I'm like, you see all the doctors, and they've all got their jump wings, their halo wings, their combat infantry, combat medic badges, and their lieutenant colonels, and they're like, holy shit, well, that's no joke. And now a big part of that is they take SF guys or they take special operations community enlisted guys, and then they pay for you to go to school. They're like, hey, you want to be a nurse? Fine, we'll send you to 4 years of school, and then we'll send you to nursing school. You want to be a doctor? We'll pay for all that, but then you owe the Army, specifically special operations, 1 for 1. So if you go to undergrad and med school and then a 2-year thing, you owe them 10 years afterwards. But these guys are so wrapped up in that community that they don't even think twice about it.
They're not going anywhere anyway.
But they just dominate it now. That's all right. Screw us, screw you. And that's what I tell people in the tactical medical world on the law enforcement side is you got to be that guy. You don't have to be a paramedic or a nurse because the skill set helps you. Because what are you going to learn in nursing school that's going to help you
With what we're doing
right
today.
in a front room with a guy who just caught 3 rounds? Nothing.
Wipe somebody's butt.
But But you're going to go in front of that world, you better be able to put some stuff behind your name, and you better be able to speak the language, because if you don't at that point, no one's going to take you seriously. So, and that's one thing I always joked about with, paramedics never getting any respect. You go into the doctor's lounge, there's not little dicks drawn on the wall, like Superior sucks dick or whatever. Like our lounges always look like that, and you wonder why nobody treats you seriously, because you act like a bunch of, if you act like a shitbird, people are going to treat you like that.
Right.
And it's always been the hard part of our profession, is getting people that we get mad that people don't take us seriously, and then we act like idiots.
Right.
And that's why I tell guys on our side of the house too. It's all cool to be the cool guy, SWAT medic guy, or whatever else, man. But you have to be able to speak intelligently about evidence-based medicine. You can't just be like, "Well, we do it because that's how we do it." You don't understand, man, because you weren't there. Right. I'm like, look, man.
I was in there, man.
I was doing it, man. I was doing it, you know. And so we emphasize that, and that's another one of the big lessons you learn from the military coming over, is that relentless, ruthless, evidence-based. If you can't prove it, I don't want to hear it. I'm not interested in hearing your cornball theory or.
Right. Well, a lot of the things that I read about evidence-based medicine all comes from the Israelis, like the way they handle bombings, how they handle mass shootings and stuff like that. Because those guys have been doing it for a lot longer than we have. And they put a lot of emphasis in that treatment. Like, if a car bomb goes off in the middle of the square, they don't even work anybody, like, within a certain perimeter of that explosion. They kind of work from the outside in.
Yeah, there's and so I'm in a lot of ways I'm a big fan of the Israelis, and in a lot of ways I think they get a lot of more credit than they're due sometimes. I'll be honest with you, the American military really runs tactical medicine. The Israelis do a lot, but
Do you give them credit for the tourniquets?
So they really initiated, but the proof in the pudding was really in Iraq, frankly, in 06, 07, 08. That's when we were really able to get the data that was like unequivocal. It was because the casualty numbers were so high. The Israelis, they fought wars, but they were over very quickly, generally, in a stunning Israeli victory. But the raw combat numbers, and I will give the Israelis mad credit for how they handle their mass cows. They not only, and it's like you're seeing, like one thing we see now is stop the bleed is comparable to CPR. In Israel, everybody knows that. So when a bomb goes off, everybody can dump in and start doing some work. The same way that if you drop in Seattle, your chances of surviving a cardiac arrest are substantially better than a lot of places because they make you take CPR there.
Right.
Same thing with stop the bleed. If you can teach somebody how to get in there and knock some bleeds down quickly, because if you're waiting for and I make fun of not just Chicago Fire, but everybody with the abysmal, like the guy, the chief shows up with the eight radios and whatever, setting up tarps. And listen, dude, if you're setting up red, yellow, and whatever tarps, they're done anyway, dude. Right. If you haven't gotten there and fixed the problems and evac those people, this is not your great-granddaddy's MCI. This is not a school bus or something like that. This is a different animal, and the Israelis have really done solid work on that. But I still think from the combat medicine standpoint, I think we've really kind of overtaken them on a lot of the stuff, on the day-to-day infantry level to special operations level stuff. I think that you kind of have to look to especially the Army. Being a Marine guy hurts me to say that sometimes, but the Army's really led the way in this. And of course, Captain Butler and whatever in the Navy did a lot of really good work with them. I'm not disparaging what they did, but you look at who's really carrying the load with that is a lot of the Army stuff. And thank God this has kind of eased back a little bit, but the proving ground was Iraq and Afghanistan, and these have all been, validated stuff.
Statistics,
so.
yeah.
I mean,
and we've talked about before, Vince. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we've done that, like, you guys are able to, Vince, you guys in the city are able to just use the sheer volume and use that data to actually, put together some actual plans on how do you want to act on things.
Yeah, I mean,
they just recently did that with Incident Command for the cardiac arrest.
Right.
Love that. Love Pete Lazar for that. Love that. Just think that's. And then, Pete had one of those things that I steal relentlessly. And it was one of the truest things he's ever said in his life. And I emphasize this to every tactical medical class I teach. He said, radios are awesome. You can call for anything on a radio. You can get engines and trucks and helicopters, and you can get oxygen bottles. You can get blankets, and, you can get all this. The one thing you cannot get is the one thing you need more than anything else, and it's time.
Yeah.
Time is everything. And if you squander that, then you're time is the casualty in which fire, the fire is the, rather, time is the fire in which casualties burn. I say that too. There's nothing to replace it, and you can't get it back. And I would rather, and again, I learned this in 10, bringing a guy who looks like a crash test dummy who's alive is better than bringing in a perfectly packaged dead dude.
Right.
And I got that ruthlessly hammered into my head by the people I worked with on those ambos. And I'm telling you what, it's a lesson that I never forgot, and that it was just re-emphasized in places like Iraq where...
Well, Pete always told us because Pete taught us in paramedic school, but the one thing he always taught us is the best medicine for trauma is diesel fuel.
Here it is. Yeah.
That's it, period.
Step on the gas pedal vigorously. I teach that all the time.
Let's go. Load and go and get him to the trauma center. There's a reason why there's wheels on this ambulance, boys.
Well, there's a lot of people can't appreciate how fast time flies when you're working any kind of, like, if you're on a plan and you're working, and when people ask me about how I do plans, I said that time you're gonna, before you know what, those ambulances are gonna be up your ass looking for a patient. Where am I going? What am I doing? So, and for you to stay ahead of it, you're already behind. By the time you're figuring it out, you're already behind. So that time, you may think, I don't hear anybody. I just showed up on the scene, but that time is already gone.
Yep.
So it is the fastest thing on the face of the planet, is that time.
And, for the military, the only advantage we have is I'm there when it happens, whereas you're already behind the power curve. You already had to get there the whole 9 yards, whereas I'm literally, the clock rang, the minute that explosion went off, I now know,
Time to go.
But you're exactly right. You're behind the power curve. The minute you get there, you step off the ambulance, you're already catastrophically behind, and you will never catch up.
Yeah, you can't catch up.
Yeah.
Since we're on the subject of mass casualty and stuff, let's fast forward to 2018. And where were you the time that you got that call for the active shooter at Mercy Hospital?
So I was at Home and Square, actually, at the time, towards the end of towards the end of my tour.
Right down the street from my firehouse.
Yeah. So in the beautiful west side of Chicago. So I heard over the radio, and
what did it come in as for you guys?
So the first I had heard of it, and this is not how it came in, but I heard active shooter. That came over the zone as an active shooter. What they call it? I can't remember I'm having a stroke now. I can't remember what the name of it is. The active shooter plan or whatever. Like, holy crap! Now it came in really as a domestic initially,
which it was.
Are you in a squad car? Or
so I'm literally in my office at Home and Square. I'm on the third floor.
And your on duty has a SWAT. Like, how do those hours work? Like,
so I'm a house mouse. I'm like totally lucky. I work from 6 a.m. to 2:30 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. Although it never winds up.
But you're always like active. Like
my phone goes off.
You can be called at any time.
Yep.
Okay.
I literally have missed my son's, things for my son, things for my family, things for everything. Just at the drop of a hat. I have to have a take-home car.
Except for this podcast, right?
Right. Well, my phone's turned off, so yeah, you watch some kind of massive thing going on.
The city's burning around us right now.
There's 18 calls on my phone. I'm like, fuck, dude. But so I'm there. I'm at the end of my tour. I'm kind of just putzing around. I'm usually just working through my gear, or, looking through training schedules or things like that. And I hear it like, holy crap, it's an active shooter. But you got to understand that for every one of those you hear, by the time you get on your horse and you're hauling the mail, like, oh, never mind, it was a security guard or a firecracker or whatever. Right. So, but I'm like, screw it, I'll go. We'll go. It's near the end of my tour. That'll be the end of it. I'll get whatever. I'll get on the 290. They'll call it off, and I'll be halfway home. So,
is that the route you took? You hopped on the 290 from there?
So actually, I came down Roosevelt Road. That's what I did.
That's what I thought you would just be hauling down Roosevelt.
Yeah. So I went down. I peel off down Roosevelt, and I figured that's not a bad way to go either. But then I start hearing
that's kind of a nice way to mentally prepare yourself, is driving down Roosevelt Road.
Yeah, right. So, but also now you're hearing more and more like it's bona fide. So I got my car up to 107 miles an hour. I know that's how fast the car will go. I will never probably do that again. But so I go ripping into the hospital. I turn off the car, and it literally does that thing where it goes for like 30 seconds as I'm running off. So I just grabbed.
Where are we in this incident now when you show up?
So when I showed up, they'd already killed the bad guy.
Elvis
Tersinowicz was one of our snipers. Did an unbelievably good job. He engages this guy alone. Our team the 3-man team gets separated. He winds up engaging this guy at 73 yards. The guy's trading fire with him. His rifle catastrophically fails. He has a level 2 malfunction that he has to clear under fire So he goes prone, he clears this malfunction of the weapon systems, comes back up. The guy had established a pattern. We kind of popped out from cover, shot a couple rounds, popped out. And so when he popped out one time, Elvis put a round in him, and then he had enough juice left to go ahead and install the sunroof in himself. So that was the end of that. But the call was coming in that there were multiple shooters with multiple rifles. So when I arrived there, we were still under the impression that there were still shooters armed with rifles, which is another huge problem with almost every active shooter situation is you're going to get tons of bad intel. Right. And it's just how it goes. People see coppers in civilian clothes with rifles. They panic. They call it in. So when I got there, we did, in the airborne, they call it LGOPs, little groups of paratroopers. Like you land and you fold up your parachute, you find another paratrooper, then you two find another 2 guys, and then those 4 guys find 4 guys, and you start going and wrecking things. And that's kind of what we did, except for the wrecking part. I found another guy, we ran in together, we found 2 more guys, we formed a strike team, and this is another thing where me being...
Now SWAT guys or just any cop that you ran into?
We ran into SWAT guys. There were a lot of coppers that were already there, but they were not going to do a lot of the room-by-room hunting that the SWAT team does.
These guys are allocated to.
And that's what, that's the mission. So basically, this is one of those examples where normally that is not my mission. It's not my role. I do not jump in a stack with these guys. But sometimes when the ship's on fire, everybody's a fireman. Right. So I wind up jumping on that stack, and we moved to the top of the one tower and started clearing down. And another group came from there, started clearing up, and then a third team was clearing the undersections. And then finally what came in was that, I think this is not... It's not a multiple shooter situation, so we kind of throttled back. We had to clear the whole building and everything. But one of my medics had a phenomenal, he had a Matt Kegler, unbelievable, one of the guys that I trained as an EMT basic, super proud of him. He had and we watched the video of this with some of the body cameras. So unfortunately, the officer that got killed poked his head around the corner, trying to do a limited pen from 73 yards. The guy hits him right in the neck. It's not a survivable wound from the get-go. You literally see him take the hit. He spins around. He starts running away from the thing. His hands are on his neck. His eyes are the size of dinner plates. He knows he's in trouble. My medic comes running up to him. And you can literally see him start to move his rifle to start working on this guy. But then he realizes the other SWAT guy's still in a firefight. And one of the things that we train coppers that people do not understand is that you do not treat anybody until the threat has been addressed, especially if you're a SWAT guy. So you tell a school teacher that you're going to step over wounded kids, but we have to stop the killing before we can stop the dying. Right. If I stop to put a tourniquet on this kid, the stopwatch of death now is about 1 person a second is how fast they're killing people. If I stop to put a tourniquet and save 1 life and it costs me 15 seconds to do so, which is supernaturally fast, you just buried 15 people. So he realizes at this point that the firefight is still going on, and he pushes around this cop. And to this day, he still has trouble with that decision, even though multiple people told him that was a non-survivable injury on point of contact. But still, he drove around that guy, and he helped Elvis engage the threat, and they cuffed this guy up. And then he wound up working on the pharmacy, the female pharmacy physician or doctor of pharmacology that got hit. And he wound up working on her. So again, I thought it was a great example of tactical medicine. You have to address the threat. We teach our guys all the time that there's no medicine in a firefight, and he was able to do that under what I think is probably the most demanding circumstances that you could ever have to have as a police officer.
Absolutely.
Is to move, but he did the absolute right thing both times. Once the shooter was down, he went and found work. He went back, he found her, he started working on her. But then he also talked about the idea where he started to do his assessment and then realized, finally one of your people comes up with a stretcher and goes, what are we doing? And he's like, we're getting her out of here. That's exactly what we're doing. But he would have stayed there and kind of done, and we kind of inflicted a little of a training scar on them as far as doing their assessment, when really just get them out. We know the entire Chicago Fire Department's parked in the parking lot. Just get her up and get her out. Slap it, which he did. He put a chest shield on the entrance and exit wounds, and then haul the mail. There's nothing else you can do. Hand her off. So again, he did a phenomenal job on that, and then the team did an awesome job on that as well. But my role is pretty much centered down around just doing some search work with the people. We learned some interesting. If you saw the IFSI thing, we had some interesting stuff as far as entry stuff, duress codes, things along those lines. Had a little altercation in the psych floor that the psych nurses didn't want to let us onto the psych floor to search, and
oh boy.
I understand where she's coming from, but for all I know, this guy standing behind her out of sight with a gun to her head saying, if you let him in here, we're going to kill you. Well, I have to search. We have to we have to clear the floor.
Yeah.
But I also understand that you have people that are not going to appreciate 8 or 10 guys with guns busted in there. So again, I think it's one of those educational things but the problem is that there's one SWAT team and there's 50 hospitals of different types in the city of Chicago. It's hard for us to get out there.
Everyone's got their own protocol.
And there it is. 100%.
What's a level 2 failure?
So he has a double feed on the system. So normally, if it's a level 1, it just fails to go bang. It's called sport fire. You seat the magazine, you pull the charging handle, you observe, you reset, you tap the forward assist, and you shoot. And I can do a level 1 malfunction in 3 seconds, 4 seconds. A level 2 means you have to strip the magazine out, lock the bolt to the rear, clear out the malfunction, reseat the magazine, recharge the weapon,
So obviously, clearly more involved.
Yes,
Right.
and it's not instinctive. Like I almost do sport fire instinctively now. Like I put blanks in, or not blanks, but I put dummy rounds in my magazines randomly just to have that happen. But level 2s, you have to set them up. They're hard to clear. But I'm telling you, he did a phenomenal job. I mean, just cool as cucumber, was able to clear the malfunction, and that guy would have gone and killed more people. He had already killed 3 people. The doctor, the physician in the ER, unfortunately, I heard nothing but great things about her. Every crew I ever talked to absolutely loved her. Incredibly tragic what happened to her. Then he just drilled that poor woman getting off the elevator, the doctor of pharmacology, just for no reason whatsoever, and then killed our police officer. Had a couple more loaded magazines on him, and he had every intention of hurting more people. And what Elvis was able to do was just, it's literally, that's the ultimate shot in law enforcement, is engaging an active shooter, especially from behind cover at 70 yards. That's not a chip shot by any stretch of the imagination. He just did an unbelievably good job. The whole team did. And I was part of the department in general, how everybody, we flooded in there pretty quickly. And it's kind of funny that a lot of hospitals won't let you into the hospital in uniform with your weapon on. But nobody seemed to stop us on that one. And you kind of,
Right.
There's a joke, I remind me about France, like the old World War II veteran going to France, and the guy at customs asked him for his passport. He's like, I don't have a visa. I don't have a visa. Like, what are you? You've never been to France before? You have to have a visa. He goes, well, last time I was here, I didn't need one. Like, impossible, monsieur. When was that? 1944. There was nobody here to ask me for it. So, not that hospital's been bad. There were other hospitals that were a little bit, but you get a little annoyed that you're perfectly cool with me coming in there and getting shot to protect your hospital, but
Right.
you want me to turn my weapon into an unarmed security guard when I come in there to visit somebody. Like, that's weak sauce, man.
And that's not how that works anyways, so.
Well,
Yeah.
do you know the irony of that shooter? He was kicked out of the academy.
Right.
Right. He was
Of the police academy?
No, he got called for he was a single role paramedic candidate, and he got kicked out.
Yeah, I heard it was suppression, but I don't know. Either way, you get the golden ticket, dude, and you screwed that up.
Yeah.
And I guess threatened to come back and shoot the place up. He clear was not
Yeah.
a stable dude. It wasn't like some random situation where like you didn't see that one coming, like a lot of people did.
Right. Yeah.
And
See, the system works, Vince. Every once in a while, the system works.
So is that like one of the most intense things that you've seen as a SWAT officer? Or I know you're getting called out a lot. Like, is there another incident that comes to mind that you like a real pucker factor?
Well, I'll tell you the main one we had just recently on 30 May when we were doing when everything went up big time after dark when really the loop and the Mag Mile went up. We had a thing where we're moving through and it was medieval. I mean, squad cars are on fire. There's glass everywhere.
Was that Friday or Saturday?
That would have been Friday night into Saturday, I thought it was, or was it Saturday into?
It was Friday to Saturday.
Yeah, so Friday into Saturday. So it may have been either late.
Because I was there Friday, and I've talked about it on another podcast that it was real life Gotham City.
No, it was medieval. I mean, literally, there's nothing but broken glass everywhere.
And then
Squad cars are on
nothing
fire.
you could do.
Nope. And we were small groups of us. We had like 4 or 5 of us that were in a group. Nobody was interested in engaging us. They were too busy stealing. And they're also, 5 SWAT guys walking around do not make a good target.
Yeah.
So we're walking, and then, of course, somebody flags us down. And I run over there, and it's this very young male who had jumped out of a window, fallen in the glass, tore his knees and his hands up. And so, one of the people who were just, fuck 12 and, all cops are bastards are now flagging me down in the middle of this.
Right. Now he needs your help.
Right. So we run over there. We go ahead. We put I put a battle dressing on his leg, and it was actually on the Chicago Police Department Twitter and Facebook stuff or whatever. So I'm getting all kinds of crap about that. But so we do that, and then that guy, the census cowboy guy. the most surreal moment. I'm putting a battle dressing on this guy. I'm just
the guy
getting
on the
done.
horse.
Right.
Yeah.
He rides up to us. So I'm working on this kid, and I hear this clip, clop, clip, clop, clip. I'm like, that sounds like a horse, but it can't be. Like I must be having a CVA. You know, I'm having a TIA or something.
Guys, I'm gonna need an ambulance.
And I look up, and the guy's standing there. He's got a chest plate of armor on this horse. He's like, "There's been a man shot around the corner." We're like, "Oh, okay, well,
All right there, Dudley.
I will go check."
Did
that.
you like touch him to see if he was real?
Yeah,
Or
I'm literally looking at other guys like, you hear him too, right? I mean, so we run down there, and sure enough, it's a dude who got shot, and Kenny Adair, one of my medics, he slaps a tourniquet on him, and I'm doing the follow-on assessment, we're calling it and everything else, and of course his two female companions with their like "F the police" signs, and I'm like, so now we're not so bad, right? Yeah. So now it's not. So we're cool now, right? And she starts to say, I'm like, that wasn't a question. It was just a comment. So we're going to get your... So we're like, I'm got on the radio, call OEMC. I'm like, ambo coming? They're like, yeah, it's coming. It'll be there in a little bit. I'm like, well, all right, whatever. I don't even know what to expect at this point. And so the squad car, a battalion chief, an engine, like 3 ambulances.
No, that was our task force.
I was like, it's like, and the side door opens up. They're like, you have a casualty? I'm like, yeah, he's right here. Like, load him in. They're like, boop, boop. And the EMS train rides off. I'm like, that is brilliant. I mean, that's how else are you going to operate?
That's how we rolled that day.
Dude, it was awesome.
It was a task force, and at one point they were just pulling the hose off the engine.
Yeah, so we called for a 10-1 for that engine. We responded to that. We were also at the one where the camera placed the caught on fire.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, but Flounder was the field officer on that one. So like, hey, what's going on?
Robin was there.
You have this weird conversation like this guy in this situation is unlike anything you've ever been in. So like, how are you guys doing? Like,
it was surreal that whole day, right?
No, it was bizarre. It was absolutely. And then they were throwing earlier in the day when we were on the line. They were throwing quarter sticks at dynamite at us. And let me tell you what, that really got me because I don't. Those sounded a lot to me like they sounded like mortar rounds to me, and I don't.
Yeah.
They sounded a lot like that. It really got inside my head for a couple of seconds there. I was like, wow, I'm really not cool with this. Like the bottles were bad enough, the glass bottles, the frozen water bottles.
That was okay. But like you said, when they started throwing those fireworks, those M80s and what have you, and it wasn't until you guys showed up and started spraying whatever the fuck that is.
It was just pepper spray. That's what everybody's like, oh, you use tear gas. No, we used OC, we used pepper spray. We were not allowed to use anything else.
That was the only thing that saved the day for that entire incident was when you guys came out and you guys just formed up and started spraying everybody.
You're welcome. I was on that line. So
thank you so much.
You're welcome. Glad to help.
Right before you guys showed up, I was shitting my pants, and I told everybody, I'm like, that was by far the worst day in my career was that day.
It was like a rock. It was literally like Baghdad. It literally reminded me of Solder City in a lot of ways.
And they put up the bridges, so we're backed up against the wall.
You can't go anywhere.
We are literally, it's the Alamo.
And they didn't have a taste for pepper spray that day, and that was really kind of enough.
That took the fight out of them.
When you're spraying the pepper spray, how much of that are you chewing on?
So we're wearing masks. So the unfortunate thing was, and I probably shouldn't talk about this because the Chicago, a lot of the line officers didn't have masks, and they were fine with it. They're like, hey, listen, we told them, hey, man, when we open up, we're going to try to get these guys with the prevailing winds, and and then our chain of command was super careful. Like they have to have an egress route. We can't spray them in a place they can't retreat. So our bosses were like doing a lot of calculating about whether we were cleared to fire or not, would deploy the gas or not. And when we did, some of it did blow back on the guys, but they just didn't care at that point. They're like, just spray it. Like, well,
and that's what a lot of people don't understand is when you guys do stuff, there's a fucking huge thought process behind everything. It's not like you're out there willy-nilly.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And I can't emphasize that to people enough that not only is it a decision and a thought process that's made on the line, but it's a decision and a thought process that's made in the administration and the people above you. And there's a lot of people going through a lot of education in their brain to figure out how we're going to solve this problem.
Yeah, our lieutenant did a phenomenal job. He was out there with us on the line, and there were a couple of times like, hey, we can't engage them because they don't have an escape route. They can't. If we spray them and they panic, they're not going to be able to go anywhere. So, again, you're exactly right. There's a lot of training and a lot of consideration where there was nothing that was done spontaneously by law enforcement. There may have been individual, whatever that happened, but as far as like major elements or stuff by our team, it was all very carefully planned and cautiously carried out. You're exactly right. A lot of that, this whole narrative out there, and I don't want to get too much into it, obviously, that, we're willy-nilly, let me tell you what, it was not that way at all. And when we did deploy it, it was literally like, wow, it's now or we're going to lose the line.
We were at that point. And that was the second time in my career that I've used my Millennium mask. So for all you people who lug that thing around and never, there will be a time that you will put that on.
So my buddy John Franta was with us at 35th of Michigan, and we got assigned the next day to protect 35th of Michigan, and we didn't wind up deploying anything. It got a little hairy from time to time, but he was out there with his helmet on and his Millennium mask and whatever else, and I was like, see, you're going to use that thing after all.
So this is going to be probably a good enough time for us to take a timeout?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
This episode of Chicago's Bravest Stories is brought to you by Genico Roofing. You can find them on Facebook, JENICO.
Vince, who knows building, construction, and roofing?
Firefighters do.
And this company is firefighter owned and operated.
So Genico are specialized in residential roof tear-offs here in Chicago and the suburbs. They are licensed and insured. You can get a hold of our friend Jim at Genico at 815-693-5665. Genico.
So, as you guys can hear, we're back from our break. We freshened up the cocktails. We're back here with Brian Bardsley, CPD.
Don't joke about
Put
that.
your cocktail down, Vince.
Right. Yeah, so
CPD, SWAT medic, extraordinaire Brian Bardsley.
And speaking of, the relationship between Chicago Fire Department and Chicago Police Department, I think a lot of our, I would say a vast majority of our 4 listeners are from
who are
right.
Cody's aunts.
Yeah, exactly. But they've got a fire background, so I think a lot of them would like to maybe know what's day-to-day operations, or maybe even getting started in SWAT. What were you expected, and what were you getting into day one?
Yeah, so you have to understand, for the SWAT team, there's a rigid selection process that they go through. It's a demanding selection process. Initially, back when it was HBT, the Hostage Barricade Terrorism Team, they came all from SOS, the Special Operations Services guys, and so it was a completely different animal. So it was very difficult to get on the team, and I came over there as a guy who had not gone through any of that. They brought me over. I wear 2 hats. I'm the Weapons of Mass Destruction team leader, and I'm the medical team leader. They kind of brought me over there. The excuse they brought me over there was WMD, but they wanted me to do medicine. So when I got over there, there were a certain element of old guard people that were not happy with me being there at all. They didn't want me.
Did they feel like you didn't deserve?
Right.
To
you don't earn. You didn't earn it. Like, they didn't want me wearing the green uniform. They didn't want me wearing a SWAT patch. You didn't earn that stuff. And I've always been very clear that I'm not an operator. I'm a medic. I'm attached to them. I'm attached to Unit 353, which is the SWAT team. But I'm not a SWAT operator. That's not my gig. But a lot of guys were very bent out of shape. They felt like I was trying to backdoor my way on the team, trying to do a lot of things. And then Mark Marjanovic, who passed away, great guy, and he basically just kind of laid the hammer down. Like, this guy's a medic, and he will be the medic, period. If you don't like it, the line form to the left of my office, come on in. So at the end of the day, so when I got there, really for the first almost year, I didn't do anything. I did, we trained with guys and whatever else. And then finally it got to the point where one of the guys on the team, Keith Fleming, was like, "You're a paramedic. You've been down range. Why aren't you going out with us?" I was like, "I'll play your foolish game. Why am I not going down with you?" So he goes and talks to Mark. Mark says, "All right, we're going to start taking a medic with us." And so it started off with me being in the armored vehicle, staying in the armored vehicle the whole time. Which is useless. I mean, if I'm that far away, then you're in a time where seconds count. I'm minutes away. So at the end of the day, I kind of told him, like, if you don't want me to go out, I just won't go out, because all you're doing now is I'm going to be able to watch you die is what I'm going to be able to do. So finally, eventually, and there were some guys, one guy literally said, "Medicine is defeatist." I mean, clearly people who had never been shot at before were saying stuff like this. Medicine is defeatist. We're hunters. We're not medic. We're not, we don't do that kind of thing. And the emphasis you had to kind of push with these guys is the idea it's self-aid, buddy aid. Like, at the end of the day, if you catch a round, you better be able to fix yourself, because CFD is awesome, and they are blocks away, but when you look at
we are blocks away.
Exsanguination from an extremity wound is 1 to 3 minutes. I mean, you're done. If you don't know how to fix that, you're not carrying the equipment and you lack the training to do so, it's not going to work for you. So what it was a super painful, super slow process of getting guys more comfortable. The times that I worked with people, the patients I did work on, I did a fairly, I feel like I did a good job on and everything else. So it was a slow process. And then finally, as new guys came on board, I was able to be part of the selection process, being a medic there. So people start to see you as the medic from the get-go instead of seeing you as a newcomer. And again, we've done some pretty serious work. We've had some people get hurt pretty bad. We've been able to help the department out with some of the lawsuits with the team, with people claiming they weren't getting medical support when they clearly were. They're getting, refusals signed, and they're trying to say that we didn't give them any medical help. Well, you signed the refusal, and that's all right, case dismissed. Like, all right.
I don't think people realize that you guys can document refusals.
So we don't actually. We make you guys do it. And the ambulance companies, I've never had a problem with them. We've had some weird things. We had like one guy who stripped naked and poured blue paint on himself, blue latex paint, and came out, and we handed him off to the ambulance, and they were not real happy with us. But I'm like, what do you want me to do? I can't, whatever. The guy's got to go to the hospital. And so the engine company hosed him down or whatever. But we can document refusals. We're in Northwestern system. Dr. Champus is awesome. He is our project medical director. He runs everything for the Chicago Police Department. And he has been our greatest ally. I can't say enough good things about him or Northwestern. Patty Lindemann, same deal, awesome. I mean, she has nursemaided me and wet nursed me through a million little hiccups and problems. They've, the team as it is today really is as much kudos to them as much as anybody else. But yeah, we can do expanded scope of practice for our EMT basics and everything. But again, it was one of those things where it took time. It took time to get people comfortable with you being there, and then realizing that I wasn't trying to get on the team. Like, they're never going to, look for, another body to help them go into search a room, and it's going to be me. I mean, unless things have really gone bad, and there's only been 2 or 3 times in my career that I've actually moved in actively with the team, but they've come to trust me that I'll be there for them. They understand what the mission is. But it was hard. It was a long process of a lot of people not liking medicine in general, and me in particular. And I honestly, it's not a popularity contest. I've long since realized that. So I don't really care what they thought about me, but to dismiss the value of tactical medicine at that level, especially with the way they do things, it was frustrating, and it was a time that I almost left. It was maybe 3 years into it. They had me on the desk 5 days for like 3 days a week, and I was like, I'm not here to be a desk guy. If you want to do that, then find somebody else. I'll go back to the academy, and I'll go there. And fortunately, it didn't go down that way. But it's just one of those things. And now, and one thing I will say is the chain of command has always been super supportive through the whole process. Even if some of the guys weren't always. Again, the chain of command has been pretty good about that as far as.
So, are you officially, as a CPD officer, you're not detailed to SWAT? That's your assignment.
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah,
okay.
I am attached to Unit 353, which is the SWAT team. So
does that come with like specialty pay and stuff like that?
So, boy, you just hit a hard spot. So,
oh boy,
in special,
we're known for our hard hitting questions.
So special functions is the
and then the union steward gets them all edited out. So don't worry.
The Counterterrorism Bureau. So you have bomb techs who get sergeant's pay. You have Marine unit people who get a pay bump. You have canine officers who get a pay bump, and then you've got SWAT guys who get nothing. Our SWAT guys, on the fire side, even when I was a paramedic, if I was a hazmat technician and a diver, I would get extra money. I don't get anything extra. Like our hazmat techs, we have hazmat technicians. We've sent people to hazmat school. Technicians, your guys over there, Jammer and those guys take real good care of us with that. We get no pay bumps. And you pay a lot of money. Like you get issued some basic SWAT gear, but guys spend a lot of money on their own stuff. And we get nothing. And in a way it's good because then you only get guys that want to be SWAT dudes. But the problem is any pensionable position opens up, detective, evidence technician, whatever, guys leave because that's a huge deal. If you're talking about a big pay bump, you lose great guys to these different units and stuff like that. So yeah, we get no. So even if we did get a pay bump, I probably wouldn't get it because I'm not quote unquote an operator, and I'm totally cool with that. I accept that role. But our guys, the operator guys, did nothing. They literally get paid nothing more than the dude at the desk at 35th and Michigan who's moving paper from one pile to the other. He gets the exact same amount of pay.
And that's crazy because like when you walk into the NIPSTA Fire Academy, one of the first like big photos, they got these big photos that line the hallway, and one of them is a bunch of SWAT guys in hazmat gear.
Yeah.
And I'm like on my way to do my Tech B, and I go, oh, that's fucked up. I don't want anything to do with that. Like here's this big emphasis on like, you know, hazmat, wearing the suit, making sure the suit's good, taking your time, and then you're like, oh, there's bullets. And these guys do it.
You know, it was fascinating because when we took the hazmat classes, the hazmat always started with, okay, the police have cleared this area, and now we're going to go in. Like, well, no, we're going to go in there and do that. We had a chemical suicide. We went in and rescued this guy. Like, he put the signs up and everything, like, hey, don't come in here. Whatever. You know, like, you can buy that kit or whatever online. And we had to go in and get them, and we're all wearing hazmat gear. Now, let me tell you what, the gear is miserable to begin with in high heat conditions, and you throw the suits on. We wear a modified B. We don't go A, obviously. For a variety of different tactical reasons, but the modified B sucks as well. And these guys did an unbelievable job breaching these doors to get into this guy and getting him out of there and everything else. It was a great effort, but we had to borrow a lot of your gear. And they basically muled me out. Like, all right, wear this and wear these. And if this thing starts beeping or whatever, then, you know, I'm like, I'm a hazmat technician. You don't have to treat me like a complete moron. And they like completely ignored me. Like I said, if this thing starts flashing, I'm like, all right, fine. Well, I got it. Which is one of the few times I did go in with those guys because they needed their hazmat. They needed a tech with them to be able to tell them, you know, environmental stuff and whatever. So I got to go do that. But not a nickel more. We send guys to Chicago Fire. We send them down to Anniston, Alabama all the time. We have a pretty good cadre of people that, and then COVID-19 was a big, you know, that was our moment to shine. Like every hazmat nerd on the planet got all excited. Every Seaburn dude on the planet was all like, finally people are listening to me. And that lasted about 15 minutes and nobody wanted to listen to you anymore. But
are there any specific traditions that you guys practice on SWAT?
That we're allowed to know about.
Yeah, nothing I can really talk about open source.
We have corned beef on Saturdays.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Okay, all right,
nothing specific.
There's nothing specific like that.
No actual hazing for a new guy.
No, actually, I mean, there's the verbal demolition derby. Like if you're, you know, if you come in there and you stand out, you're going to get ground. Either you're going to get ground down or you're going to leave. Probably, but it's nothing like a hazing. They don't like take you out back and paddle you or anything like that. It's because I mean, especially in the modern day, where for the love of God, don't hurt anybody's feelings.
After this, there's a hazing,
whatever.
By the way, for all our new guests.
Yeah, we have hazing podcast hazing.
Yeah, well, that whole thing, like, you know, you can you can sex in or you can get beat in. Like, well, why not both? Why do I got to pick? I mean, what's that all about?
Right? Why pigeonhole myself by going down one road?
Yeah, listen, dude. Come on, man. That's the big joke. Like, if you're a Marine infantry guy and you get out, you can either be a cop or a gay porn star. And you're like, well, why are you gonna limit me? Why do you feel like that? I mean, I can't do both. I mean, come on, man.
Well, eventually in this podcast,
this definitely took a weird turn.
Don't cut that out for me, please.
It's definitely Cody's fault.
Well, it has my job to get us back on track. Eventually in this podcast, Corey is going to ask you if you've had any jokes played on you or if there was any like super ridiculous ball busting going on within SWAT. Have you guys had any pranksters on the SWAT team that you can speak to?
You know what? There's no real pranksters. Like,
well, that's what's wrong with SWAT.
I saw so much more pranksters on fire than I did. Like, we did one thing in Stone Park. We did this thing where this guy, he had a brand new car that he loved, and we went out and did some auto extrication. We got some glass, some broken glass, and then what we did was that night he went to bed. We went out, we rolled took his keys, rolled one of his windows down, sprayed broken glass in there, pulled everything out of his car, and then we called the Stone Park police guys. We set him up for it. So
which you also worked for,
right? So it was an easy fix. So the copper comes out there and goes to do like an interview with him or whatever. So we run outside, we clean the car up, we put everything back, we clean all the glass out, roll his window back up again. And he's like, all right, let's go downstairs. I'll take a couple of pictures of your car. And then he comes down there and the car's fine. He's like, oh, you know, you fucking fire guys. You think it's funny, huh? You got to waste our time. So he puts him in cuffs and starts to put him in the back of the car.
Both ends.
Yeah, we take a picture of him getting put in the back of the squad car. It was epic, dude. It was the best prank I've ever seen in my life.
I gotta tell you, that's a good one.
There's a slow burn, but a double burn.
Yeah.
Or a backdoor burn. I don't know what you would call that.
I like that one because, like, it's not often that you're like, oh, you guys are fucking with me. And then it's like, oh, no, oh no, now I'm in trouble.
Right. No, he was, and the look on his face is classic. He was like, oh my God, they're going to arrest me. Like, we'll call a lawyer for you. And whatever, was great, dude. But there's
Because as he's getting arrested, he's trying to figure out how the fuck did my window get back?
right.
Like,
It was it was pretty funny, but no, there's more than prankers than there's ball busting. Like, there are some dudes that were legend. There's a guy named Rick Coyle on the team, and that guy was savage, dude. He's retired since. He's living down south, but that guy was legendary. Like, you fucked with that guy at your own peril, dude. Don't say anything. I didn't want to look at that guy in the back of the Bearcat sometimes. Like, he's looking to fuck with somebody. Oh, I don't want to be the dude, man. So I'm just going to sit here and go through first aid stuff, looking at my tourniquets or whatever. But there's some dudes
It's like
in
a
that.
lion in the back of the head. I just can't make eye contact.
Yeah, exactly. It's like being in prison. Like, oh my God, I didn't drop the soap or anything. There's another guy, Paul Emilio. He's pretty funny too. There's some guys that are serious ball busters. But we don't. That environment doesn't work for us. Where those guys are moving so much. They're rotating shifts, and there's, again, we're in that thing where we don't hang out. Like, that's one of the huge differences between the fire department and the police department that I noticed was, in the fire department, you come in the morning, you sit at the kitchen table, you grab a cup of coffee with your guys. Assuming you're not an ambulance 10 and you're fucking running it, whatever, 5 minutes after you get there. But you go in there, you have some coffee, then you go out, you check the apparatus, you go on runs through there, then you come. Cops, man, you go in, you hit roll call, you grab your shit, you grab your partner, then you're off. I mean, they train you to be alone.
You may not see him in another 5 years.
Dude, you're right. You may not. You're like, dude, you bump into people, and that's some good things sometimes because you hate some people, and then other times, like, wow, man, like, we're good friends, and I totally lost track of you. We're in the same district, on the same watch, in the same sector, and I don't even know you anymore. Yeah. So it's completely different. They train us to be lone wolves very much. Like, go out there and handle your business, and which also ties into the whole PTSD, real issues with that, where they train you that any sort of weakness is frowned upon. Like, you need to go out there, you need to handle your business, you need, whatever. We don't need any help. We don't like incident command. Like, coppers just don't do well with incident command. We're like, I don't understand. What do you mean I have to talk to some sergeant or whatever? I'm just gonna, whereas fire guys, they understand that shit intuitively. Coming out of the academy, it's drilled into your head, accountability, and don't freelance and whatever. And really, cops, that's what you do. You literally go out.
There's none of that, team building in the police academy.
Well, they do, but that's 6 months, and then you're gone. I mean, and then you get that feeling. Oh yeah, you're super motivated. You come up with your little class motto and your class T-shirt and whatever else, and then the minute you hit the street, that shit is gone. Yeah, they're like,
where'd you get? Yeah, the guys are like, where'd you get that T-shirt?
Yeah, like, hey, kid, lose that T-shirt. Roger that. I won't wear that T-shirt anymore.
Yeah, I noticed that out by me at least. Like, that's something that, like, with NIPUS and I just started recently figuring out that there's just no. I mean, not to. By no means is this knocking you guys, but there's no real structure, it seems like, when it comes to mutual aid responses. No. And I mean, it is, again, from what I'm finding out, it's, I mean, there's an incident in this town, there's an incident in Rosemont, they'll put out a NIPUS response. Yep. And one town might send 7 people or 7 people in 7 squads. One town might send 2 people in whatever, one squad, and it just seems like just throwing shit on the wall to see what happens.
A lot of time in Chicago, police is a little different. Obviously, we have a little more the kind of the plans that you all have, where you get a certain number of cars and responses from other districts, and we tend to work a little bit better, maybe than the suburbs, simply because we do it a little more, and we're all on the same frequencies, we speak the same language, everything else. But the suburbs, it's hard. Their SWAT teams do great. Like the NIPUS SWAT team, they are super professional. You'll get a good response out of them. And we can work with them flawlessly.
They just fit in.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. But on the beat level, it's kind of hard to coordinate. I don't know what weapon system you're carrying. Maybe you carry a shotgun. We carry M4s. Maybe that guy just got a pistol. Right. You've sometimes different radio frequencies, and we've tried to get better about that. I mean, a lot of the places. But no, you're right. It's an instinctive training difference. Like, you literally get in the car, and I'll be like, hey man, so what are you feeling tonight? Fuck that, dude. Let's go hit the hole and just answer radio jobs. Or you may be like, dude, let's go do some work. Like, I want to go get a gun. Or I want to go get, and sometimes you don't sync up. You're like, I'm hungover and you want to go chase people. I'm like, dude, I don't. And that's where a good partnership, it's just like at the AMBO, a huge partnership will make a huge difference. But we don't think like that. We don't think like in groups like that. Like, yeah, you could put together like, hey, we're going to do a seatbelt mission, or you're going to go over here and do this. But by and large, you breed independence into police officers. Like, hey, go find stuff, go find work, go get some heads, bring them in, whatever. It's a different animal. So that's one of the huge differences I saw. And you guys debrief a lot better. Like you get back off that shitty call, you sit around you sit on the table at the house. Wow, man, did you see that? Man, that chick in the back seat. And a more senior person can kind of be like, yeah, listen, or you can kind of
fuck?
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas on a car, like you're like, hey man, like maybe you're lucky your partner, like, holy shit, did we just see that? But you don't have that same, but you're catching another radio job. It's almost like the AMBO where, man, oh yeah, that was a dead baby. Wow, I remember that. Like the first dead baby I had, like, holy crap, dude, that's fucking horrible. And Joe DeVillo's like, man, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I think so, but ambulance 10 take in the like, oh, well, I guess that's, then 7 calls later, you're like, wait a second, I had a dead baby like 4 hours ago.
Right.
Like, this is surreal. Like, wow, that's really, that's bizarre. And again, I think you see the same problems in the ambo crews where they're just, you're lone wolves. Like, you don't know the fire guys. So people ask me, oh, do you know this guy at 95? Like, no, I only saw those guys like we rotated
Twice a
differently.
month.
And then guys get mad. They're like, "Come on, you know him. You know him.
You're at the same house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
but
at the
they're-
same.
like,
You're
yeah,
like,
like,
I don't fucking know the guy.
they're
Like,
calling
he's
you
a nice
out.
guy.
Yeah.
He's a really good
Oh,
cook.
were you
I don't
really
eat
a
the-
10?
yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? I mean, they brought me my lunch. They bring you a plate at Sinai. I don't even know who this guy is. I no idea.
He's handsome.
So, Brian, what's like an average day for you on the SWAT team?
So we're feast or famine. For me, again, I'm kind of a house mouse. I'm not like, so we put guys out on the street for, sort missions and things along those lines. But normally, I'll come in the morning and, whatever medical stuff needs to get done, I try to keep up on my periodicals. I try to keep up my skill set because, again, I don't practice like you guys do. We're lucky. We ride with you guys.
When was the last time you started an IV?
Oh, yeah, like a week ago for guys who are overheating. So I get to start a fair amount of lines.
Yeah.
But it's cheating because these guys are all like, buff and cut,
Right.
like I could put a line, I could trip and fall and put a line in you. It's not like trying to drop one into a 90-year-old nursing home patient in vascular collapse.
dehydrated,
Right, I'm like, listen, dude, I could literally like throw a fucking dart at you and put it in your arm.
Oh, took a little delay in where you're going to put that line.
Yeah, right.
Just looking for a big vein, that's all.
That's all I'm looking for. Drop your pants. Like, what? Who's the medic here? Shut up.
Okay, Doc.
Yeah, and so, like, you have your own office there?
Yeah, so we have an
Brian?
office. I work for Timmy Schnorr. He's a sergeant. He's the WMD sergeant, but I work for him. There's a couple of the guys that work in the office that are WMD, or there's a guy, Freddie Razzo, who's like a great operator, but he kind of scaled back a little bit to just, kind of have a little bit more of a life. So he's up there working with us. We do a lot of the logistical stuff, not administrative. There's a desk crew that does that.
Gotcha.
But we keep track of all the different stuff for that. We also have a training cadre that we have our own range that we have that's set aside for SWAT. So most of the time I'm just kind of, I'll try to go out and do training stuff. The guys go out to the snipers, go out there, or they go to shoot, I'll go out with them. If they're going to the FBI complex, they're going to do like shoot house, live fire shoot house. I'll go out there and just provide medical support. And then I try to jump in as much as they'll let me.
Right.
If I get to bust some caps, it's a good day for me as well.
Right.
I love that the SWAT guy uses the term "bust some caps."
Yeah, so
It's a good day for us too if we're busting.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little different, but yeah. So at the end of the day, but there's some days that are like, holy crap, you got 4 warrants and 2 jobs in 4 days. Like you're literally getting an hour and a half of sleep, 2 hours of sleep at night. You're just getting killed. Wow. And there's other times where like weeks go by and I'm just like, I go in at 6 in the morning, I leave at 2:30 in the afternoon, and I, make sure my ADs are good and make sure my meds are aren't expired, and go, do whatever, man. Kind of.
My tire pressure's been low for a couple months. Like, I guess not today's
Right.
a good day to kind of.
Yeah, go back out again, take everything out of my car and put it back in again. I mean, it's, and I joke with the guys on the team, but I feel like to a certain degree, you're medic, you get paid not for what you do, but what you can do.
Right.
I'm an insurance policy, so.
I tell people the fire department, we don't get paid for what we do. We get paid for what we're prepared to do.
There it is, and that's what I tell people about being a medic as well. And again, the chain of command is pretty supportive on not breathing down your neck, making sure you're doing busy work. But we try to help out as much as the other sections need stuff.
yeah.
We try to jump in and help. But
So like a SWAT officer, do they have like a shift? Like, are they on duty for a shift, certain amount of time with a certain amount of days off, or
Are
is
they
it
40-hour employees?
or yeah?
yeah,
how does
that's basically how it works. You're like, they were kind of had a bad schedule change due to some political reasons. But yeah, we have got guys on the street pretty much 24/7. You have a squad that's doing training. You have a squad that's on the street doing stuff, or a couple of squads that are doing that. So it kind of rotates around like and it's
What your schedule is.
and it's horrible. Like they rotate from days to evenings to afternoons, and it's just savage. That's a man-killing schedule.
rough.
And they were on 6 on, 2 off, which the old schedule, which is universally despised. But we're kind of changing that around now. But again, it rotates for them when they're on shift. How long? But they do the 8-hour. We don't have 10-hour days or 12-hour days like some of the districts do.
You get called off shift if there's an incident?
So the on-duty cars respond, and then there's a call-out system that as they'll move through the squads, and I get called for everything because
Sure.
You're the medic.
Yeah, so you pretty much, or for anything medical or WMD, I'm the guy on the list for that.
I had been detailed to Engine 78 at Wrigley Field where they had these big concerts and all kinds of other stuff. The Cubs games, and you see SWAT officers all day there. Is that like a extra gig, or is that something?
So it varies. They pull a lot of people in. There's a ton of overtime to be had on that. Guys are pissed that they cancel. I'm glad because I hated Lollapalooza and I hated all those things.
That's where I met a lot of guys too. Was Lollapalooza
Yep.
when I worked on the bike team.
Yeah, so you see a lot of those guys out there. There's a lot of overtime available on that. They'll pull a lot more people in. We would work a lot of venues, a lot of games, a lot of stuff in a lot of different capacities. And unfortunately, with the whole COVID-19 thing, in addition to just being a hot mess, it's really killing guys. Overtime or whatever else. It's
Sure.
giving them plenty of time with their families, and sometimes that's good, and sometimes not so good. So
Were you around when the transition from HBT to SWAT?
nope, that was a long time ago.
Did you have any idea? Has anybody ever spoken about like what made them go from HBT to SWAT?
Well, it was from what I understand, and you got to take this as just what I've heard. I'm not an expert on this, but basically they were kind of a part-time team. They would go out and they would bust heads and they would do SOS stuff, and then when a SWAT job would come in, they'd all come in, and the joke was HBT was hardly been trained. I'm probably gonna get beat up for that when I go back, but that was kind of the joke about it. And then they just figured, hey, we're just gonna change the name, we're gonna rebrand this thing. These are gonna be, and you didn't have to be in SOS anymore to become a SWAT guy. Like before, you had to be a bomb tech, you had to be a detective, and then they would only select bomb techs from the detective thing. And there were some guys that. There'd be guys who'd be great bomb techs that they just weren't detectives. So they opened up citywide, and then they did the same thing with SWAT. Now, any officer with enough time can try out for the SWAT
I imagine
team.
there'd be guys from the military who that was their specialty. They'd come back, and they couldn't use them because they weren't detectives.
Right, and it sucked a lot. You get a lot of specialty stuff where guys couldn't do that. Again, the bomb techs too. You get guys who are bona fide EODs or explosive qualified people that just weren't eligible to try out for it.
Would you even want to do that job?
Listen, they just tested not that long ago, and we lost one medic over there and another guy we may have going over there. And I'm like, no, we just went out there. They burned a bunch of confiscated fireworks, which is super dangerous apparently. And I don't like going out there and doing it because I don't like burns. I'm not a huge burn fan anymore. I kind of got that out of my system. But so they're talking like, hey, man, we have another test coming up. Like, yeah, I'm not interested in blowing up. I've had explosives around me going off, and I'm not down with that. So, and it was cool. They, let my partner, blow one of the things up, click, 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 and blow the thing up and whatever. And he was, totally stoked about it. I'm like, yeah, that's great. It's cool that you guys get to do that. But then you also have to defuse bombs at some point, and I'm not vaguely interested in that.
One of my things that I don't like to diffuse.
And that's cool that you guys do that and you guys get your sergeant's pay and whatever. But I don't want to blow up. So I really have zero interest in that. God bless those guys; they're awesome at it, and gals. There's some females on that.
How cool was that? That SOS team back in the day. That was old school stuff.
Yeah,
right?
Listen, man, those guys were something else. I remember when I was a PPO, right out, a probationary police officer, got a candidate for you guys, and I was working with some dude, just some random, my FTO wasn't there, and I got put with some other dude. He grabs me after roll call, and the big hubbub was a guy had lost a radio or something like that, and they're like, "Hey, come with me, kid." All right. So we drive to this thing. He bangs on this dude's door, and this dude, old G comes out, whatever. He tells the guys "Hey, man, I need that radio back." The guy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We don't have no. He's like, hey, man, SOS is getting off. They're getting on a roll call at 2:30. If I don't have that radio, you know what's going to happen. We go back in the car, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? Who's SOS? Who are these? Whatever. And then his cell phone rings 10 minutes later. It's in a trash can. It's a, whatever, 200 block of North, whatever. And sure as shit, you go back there at the trash can. There were there it is. Like, whoa, who are these dudes, man? Like people were afraid of them. Like when you'd get their attention, you didn't like it. They would come and shut down dope spots and whatever else. They were super effective. And apparently it was a little before my time, but
Too effective.
yeah. So, but they were, those guys were that, you want to talk about a team that had that legendary status? Those guys did.
Yeah.
That was like, wow, if you were SOS, you were like, that was the elite of the police department, at least where I was sitting, talking to the beat guys and whatever else.
They were allowed to be police officers. They were allowed to investigate, and then they were allowed to do something about it.
They were not tied to radio jobs. They were not answering, somebody's dog pooped on my lawn or whatever else. Those guys were strictly enforcement dudes. Yeah. And they there was a lot of it was the clout system, but also efficiency got you to those teams as well. Like those were the picked elite, like, man, like, hey, man, kid, you keep this up, kid, man, they may be looking at you for SOS down the line. Like, wow, like that's a huge compliment,
What does SOS stand for?
Special Operations Section, I think. Special Operations Services. Huh. I don't remember. It's just SOS. And we joked. We called it Son of Supervisors. Because there's a lot of... And again, I'm going to get beat up in the parking lot tomorrow. So when I call you guys from the hospital, you better bring me some beer or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
We
just
will
talking
be there.
about the most badass guys ever and then make them busting their balls. Is there anything like that currently? No. Or is that you?
No, that's and we're not even the same animal. We don't do investigative stuff at all.
This is a different time we live in.
And let me tell you what. And so here's the problem. And I'm probably going to get a CR number or whatever for this. But here's the problem. Like they can't make up their minds. Like we had a thing called Mobile Strike Force. And it was a mobile force that could strike things. Like you could use them for, whatever. And
Whatever.
That's the greatest name ever.
Yeah, there was like a targeted response. The TRU, target response unit. It was a unit that you could target for a response. It was, whatever. And then they
You
said,
guys name things great.
So now they're like, well, we don't, now we want to get rid of that because we want beat cops. Beat cops are the way to go. So they get rid of all these units, and they screwed the MSF guys. They took the whole unit and said, hey, here, your bid, when you bid out of here, there's 4 Southside districts. That's all you can go to. So everybody who volunteered for that unit got hammered when they broke it up. But now they're kind of like, well,
Is that like... Because I've heard the term saturation team.
Yeah, so those are still floating around out there. Then there's some gun teams and some things like that, but they're not the same as TRU.
I would like to be on a gun team.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
I'm not gonna disparage that, but it's not as cool as like the old
based on
SOS
your terminology,
days.
that'd be a team
That goes and gets guns.
Goes against guns.
Right.
Yeah.
Or uses guns.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody uses guns anymore. We can all help it. Once again, that day is long since gone. No, those guys do good work, but it's not the same. It's not the same as a big, large scale unit like that you can deploy into a hot spot and really try to cool things down. And now they're like, because everybody like hates these units. They, and I understand it. LA Crash when they had those guys and those issues and whatever else. You have to have oversight in those units, and they have it now. But but everybody hates the elite units or whatever. We want to have everybody in street clothes. Like New York, they got rid of their anti-crime guys, and like everything exploded. Like
they didn't get rid of their counterterrorism unit.
Well, no, in New York, let me tell you what, those guys. Oh my God, the ESU. I know, although it's weird because FDNY and NYPD despise one another. Apparently, like
right, those guys are fist fighting on scenes.
They don't like each other. They write each other a ticket. Like
they compete for jobs.
Yeah, well,
they have a rescue. They have a NYPD rescue.
Yeah,
and then they'll have FDNY squad, rescue squad, whatever. And they compete for jobs, and they do not like each other.
No. So McCarthy was our superintendent. He was from New York for a while, and he's like, "Well, I kind of want to make SWAT like ESU." And they're like, "Hey, so what would we have to do?" I'm like, "Do you have any idea how unpopular it's going to be to send 60 SWAT guys to extrication school? Do you have any idea what that's going to do to our relationship with the fire department? There already aren't enough extrications to keep the truckies busy. And then we're going to jump in on that, and we need to work on our stuff. Like, we need to do what we do. Right. So thank God that went away. But, yeah, you talk to the New York guys. Like, I guess NYEMS and FDNY don't get along all that well. I guess it's gotten better, but that partnership didn't do well either. And we're super blessed that we get along so well with you guys about 99% of the time. And there's loads on both sides that cause problems, but by and large, like, it's one team, one fight. Like, and we're so lucky.
We are very lucky that we have that type of relationship out there. So,
you know what, Brian, do you want to talk at all about, you still with Loyola, or?
I stopped
You did
teaching
some
out there.
teaching out there,
I
right?
did quite a bit
Yeah.
for a while there, and it just as I moved more into this role, like I kind of missed teaching when I was at the academy. So I taught a lot. I taught for some private companies and whatever, and now I'm kind of like, listen, this is kind of what I do for a living. Like I don't want to do this on the side very much. So I mean, I still teach out there from time to time. They're gonna.
You want to do a podcast?
Yeah, listen, man. I'm all now. Actually, now I'm good because we're a little bit quieter. So, I don't mind.
You don't want to do it.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, so I would.
Vince cracks the whip. It's terrible.
Is that right? All right, never mind. Disregard that. I'm some kind of a lazy turd a lot of the time, so you probably don't want to have me doing that. But yeah, so I teach at Loyola sometimes. NIPSTA, again, Beth Cialino kind of runs the whole EMS side of the house over there. So we did a lot of TECC classes. Did a couple of cool ones for the academy. Went to Fire Academy South and did some things for the candidates. We bring in some pork shoulders and shoot them. And Beth does this thing where she gets these like cow tracheas and stuff like that. And
surgical cracks.
Yeah, surgical cracks. Then shows you how the pneumo works. Put them in an ambu bag. The actual wrapper that it comes in, and you can actually like give it a pneumo. It's really awesome. So I like doing stuff like that, but I got away from the just hardcore, teaching on the side, and that's a lot of that's dog eat dog, like people like dicks to one another, and I'm like, I don't care that much.
And ironically, pork shoulder is actually Vince's college nickname.
Nice.
Vince, you've had a lot of college nicknames.
I've had one every podcast, I believe.
Well, they just keep getting better and better.
Yeah,
So.
Pork shoulder's not bad. I've been called worse. Let me tell you, that's not the worst.
So have I. Since we're on the topic of pork shoulder, why don't you wanted when we talked to you earlier, you wanted to kind of shed some light on your, what you want to support, which is the Wounded Warrior Foundation.
Yeah, that's one of the big ones. I tell people about my tactical medicine stuff. A friend of mine named Cam Crouch, I was in Iraq with, had a catastrophic injury when we were over there, and we were able to get him to the 20th Combat Support Hospital super fast. And I tell people that the coolest, never mind the combat medic badge or the Bronze Star or whatever else, SWAT greens or whatever. The second coolest thing I've ever done in my life, and the first one was holding my son for the first time. The second coolest thing was watching him walk down the aisle on 2 fake legs and get married. He's got a couple of kids now, and that's the validation. Seriously, that's the validation that makes everything, all the sweat, all the blood, all the tears, it makes it all worthwhile. And
you
guys
were in the same unit?
Yeah, we deployed together. Yep, okay. And I didn't know him before this, but he was in the platoon that I was with all the time and everything else, and great guy. And
does he live here?
he lives out. He's a hillbilly. Well, a lot of my unit are hillbillies, and I mean that in the best possible way. God bless him for being out of Chicago. I'm jealous as I'll get up. But a lot of those guys, they get a lot of help. I know Wounded Warriors had some problems in the past with maybe some CEOs getting too much money or whatever else. But you know what? I've known a lot of guys that they have done a lot of good for. So what I tell people, look, I don't like Christmas gifts and birthday gifts because people get you stupid shit. Like, it's only so many little police dog figurines that you can give me. So I just tell people all the time.
Got them all over the studio.
Yeah, that's how Steve decorated the studio.
Yeah, so I get it. So what I
Sorry,
tell people
Grandma.
now is if you want to get me something, just donate some money in my name to Wounded Warriors. And then the other thing I'm super passionate about, we talked a little bit about this offline, was that, again, the whole PTSD suicide thing with military people, law enforcement. I was a homeroom instructor, which is kind of the drill instructor equivalent for the academy, and one of my guys killed himself. Another guy that was an assistant homeroom instructor for killed himself. I've known a lot of people in my life that I, in our line of work, we see a lot of people that die anyway. We've all been to way too many funerals, but the ones that are the most galling are the people who take their own lives. And we just do, as a profession, yours and ours, we do a terrible job of, it's gotten better, but for the longest time, a horrific job on supporting people with this idea that, you're the whole lone wolf mentality, and we stigmatize things, you're weak, you're whatever else. And, we just got to figure out a way. And the police department's been good. We've gotten away from, if you get a PTSD designation, they don't take your weapon away anymore. You're not going to get fired. They don't take your FOID card away. I mean, obviously you cross those lines, ideations or, whatever, but they've gotten a lot better about it. But we need to,
but you got to take that stigma out if you want people to start reaching out for help.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons we have guys like you on. We've gone down this road, and we think it's important to bring more awareness to our profession and your profession.
There's no shame in reaching out. There's none. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're weak. It just means at some point everybody needs a hand.
Yeah.
And if that's the difference, and I tell people all the time, I would rather sit and listen to your your story of your life for 3 hours. I'd go to your eulogy. I don't want to hear your funeral. I don't, I tell people that, I think, but now I believe we have to do more than that. I think we, are you your brother's keeper? Yes, you are. I think the same way that you would never leave me in a fire, and the same way I would never leave you in a shooting scene. If somebody was engaging you, we're coming for you. No matter what, I will come for you. I don't care who's shooting at you. I don't care what we have to do. I'm going to come in there and I'm going to get you. And if I'm in a burning building, I know you guys are coming for me. But why would you leave me in the bunk room? Why would you leave me in the roll call room?
Right.
And we do that a lot. We realize guys are having problems. They're drinking. They're doing this. They're doing that. And people want to stay away from. Oh, that guy's trouble, man. No, man, that guy's got trouble. Why don't we do a better job? Because just telling you, putting on my Facebook page that you can call me anytime if my phone number is fine. But dude, I've known people that knew that. I knew that he knew to call me, and he didn't.
Right.
The last person he called was his girlfriend, or his ex-wife rather. Don't let him kill my dogs. My dogs are locked up upstairs. And then he hangs up the phone. He had a phone in his hand right before he killed himself. He could have called me. It's not enough. We have got to do a better job on taking care of each other. And,
Well, we had Chief Kenny on here on the last podcast.
Yeah, she's awesome.
And she said, you gotta push sometimes.
Yep.
You gotta make that guy uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you have to push. And
I believe the term she said was at that point, there's no line that you don't cross to help out.
Yeah, 100%. But you have to be ready to go all the way too.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't tell somebody you got their back and then don't answer the phone.
Yeah,
or
you're
you
all
don't
in.
wanna-
You're all in at that
100%.
point, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I had, and not to elaborate on what, but I had some family stuff going on recently, and the captain from the house called me, and anything going on, Steve? You need help with anything? Nah, Cap, I'm good. We got everything handled. Blah blah blah. He goes, listen, I don't want to be one of those guys that says I want to help and then I don't help.
Right.
I want to be the guy that says, if you need something, call me and I'm going to do something about it. And he goes, and anything you need, call me, blah, 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 blah. And many, many, many people did that. But he definitely emphasized the fact that if you need something, call me. And I'm not going to be one of those guys that says, call me if you need something. I'm going to be that guy that's going to help you.
Yeah.
So, and it resonated with me.
And we need leaders like that, and not just from the rank and file on up. We need more people like that are going to again make you uncomfortable and get inside your space and whatever, and don't take no for an answer. And again, you got to be careful about how you do it. You can't call people out in public. You gotta be careful how you do it and everything else. But I love hearing stories like that where leaders are like, hey man, we're going to take this bull by the horns. I'm not letting you off that easy, because we all say that, right? We've all been there. How you doing? I'm fine. I'm all good. I'm all good. Once you look at me and you say you're all good, all right, come on in here for a second. And,
Right.
at Rocket was easy. Like I got into smoke. The princess is all mad at me because I smoke cigars. But that was one of my things. I get a cigar and some guy was having a tough time. You'd go and, hey man, let's go smoke a cigar. Oh, all right. And then now you're stuck with me for half an hour.
Right.
And then so you wind up talking. And again, being that 35-year-old around a bunch of 22-year-olds, 20-year-olds, they kind of would lean on you a little bit. So I got to kind of do that role. I feel like, we got to do peer support for the SWAT team. So I feel like you kind of get into that role as well. And, people call you all the time, like phones ringing at 2 o'clock in the morning all the time. And it's like, hey, doc. Hey, so what's going on? Then people you don't even know, you're like, hey man, I talked to this guy who said I can talk to you, and and then it's sometimes you're annoyed. You're like, damn man, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I could be up, but then you're like, hey, fuck it, dude, you called me, right?
Right.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
What the fuck?
I'll go downstairs. I'll go make some coffee and whatever, dude. You talk, whatever you got to do, and that's I think that's again one of the things I'm proudest of. I think of what I've done in my life is that I've been there for guys. Not necessarily. I'm not gonna say it's easy to go work on somebody under fire, but it's instinctive to do that. Sometimes your true character is shown when it's not convenient for you and it's not glorious. It's that hard rubber meets the road. You're gonna have to put some work in on this one, and I feel like that's one of the things I've done in my life that I'm super proud of, is that I've been able to help some people like that and hopefully impress that on other people, so we kind of change that culture just a little bit.
Did Wounded Warrior provide support for your guy there?
Yeah, there's another. He'll be mad at me that I forgot what the thing is. Homes for Heroes. They rebuilt his whole house and everything else for him. I understand that the Wounded Warriors had a couple of trips for him and things along those lines. But I've known other people that really they went out of their way for him. I mean, they put a lot of stuff, a lot of fun trips on, and get your mind off of it, counseling, a lot of that sort of thing, buying stuff for people like, he's got 2 wrecked legs, so trying to drive a truck's a trick. Man, he's got a pimped out vehicle, you know what I mean? It's been a lot of work for him, but they've been with him stride for stride. And a lot of people have stepped up for him. So I just, that's why I tell people is don't buy me a gift, just, give some money to something like that. And there's a ton of good, the good ones out there.
Spell your last name for everybody who's going to go in and put a couple dollars into Wounded Warriors for you.
Well, how about this? We'll do them better. We will put a section for Wounded Warriors
with his name.
Okay.
Right. That'll be
on our donation section of the website.
We have a section on there where that has all our charities. So we'll attach your name to the Wounded Warrior thing.
Perfect.
For you.
I appreciate that.
It's the least we could do. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have me. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's been a blast. Any last words? Anything you want to get out why you're super famous right now?
Yeah.
to the 5 listeners that we're including your son in the 5.
So he'll be number 6. Be number 6 for you. No, I just tell people, man, be careful out there. Keep your head on a swivel. We live in dangerous times across the board. Just look out for each other, physically, mentally, emotionally. Just you look to your left and you look to your right. That's who's got your back these days, and take that seriously. Stay frosty out there.
Well, we'll have your back out there too.
No, we appreciate it. One team, one fight. You guys are awesome, and all of us. I know the SWAT team in particular, but the entire Chicago Police Department. They feel safer knowing that you guys are a couple of minutes away and that you're gonna do a great job. And I am dead serious. You don't know how much that means to us. And I can tell you 100% from the SWAT team, knowing that you guys are 2 or 3 blocks away. Yeah, they think I'm good, but they think you guys are great. And I'm telling you, but that's a force multiplier for us around the horn. So I know there's some officers out there that maybe don't do the best job all the time or whatever, but I'm telling you, heart and soul, your average Chicago police officer, man, we appreciate what you guys do. Got mad respect for you.
Well, thank you so much, and the feeling's mutual.
Yeah, definitely mutual.
And that, from our side too. So thanks again. We appreciate it. And thanks for tuning in to Chicago's Bravest Stories.
This has been a Fire and Iron Media production. You have something to say, people want to listen. How's that, Daddy?
The opinions and views are that of Chicago's Bravest Stories and their guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views of any municipal governments, fire protection districts, fire departments, EMS, or law enforcement organizations.